Okay, we are live on TikTok and YouTube. I believe both streams are running, which is always a relief. Hello, my friends. How are you all? I hope that you are all very well on this lovely evening. I'm really sorry that I couldn't do the daytime stream this week. I had my trip to Ireland. I was kind of planning to try and fit it in during the day after that and just couldn't make it work. So we will carry on doing the daytime streams on Tuesdays as of next week. That will be reinstated. But thank you for bearing with me on that. Really appreciate it. Let's just get the guest box open. I'm sure that Sean is right here, ready to come in. And there we go. Hey, Sean.
Hey, John, how was your trip to Ireland?
It was fantastic. I was looking out for leprechauns, but sadly, I didn't manage to see any. Very sad.
Oh, that's too bad. I still believe, though. I choose to.
Well, I think that's right. When it comes to leprechauns, right. you can do that. So hello to everyone. Hello to friends on YouTube. Lovely to see familiar names. Hey, Greg, nice to see you in there as well tonight. Gordon Loves Science, lovely to see you. Pastor Fairy, fantastic to see you too. Tim Davidson, never wastes any time, straight in. Appreciate that. Tim, lovely to see you. And Brainstormer, nice to see you in as well. And familiar friends over on TikTok too. We have Dr. Dig in the house. That is always very exciting and wonderful. And Icepick, wonderful to see you, my friend. Sir Jedrick, all the good people are here. This is wonderful. I'm very happy about this. And we have our first guest already with no time to waste. Shall we just dive straight in? Let's just do it. And
let's do it.
Go for it. We've got ShowTube on the TikTok side. Hey, ShowTube.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. How are you?
Hey, what's up, man? I love your accent, by the way. Very cool.
Thank you very much. How are you today?
I'm pretty good, man.
Nice.
It says God is silly?
Yeah.
Like the concept of God?
Yeah, so this is like, you know those Swiss Army knives that have got like different blades? So this prompt has kind of got different blades as well. Yeah, I think the concept is silly. And then I also think even the actual character of God himself, in terms of like, obviously I don't think God exists, right? But you can still do like a critique on a character like you would in a book. And I think the nature of the God in the Abrahamic faiths is pretty silly, like just a bit nonsensical. Like for me, there's an incongruity between this massively powerful being that is able to create universes and speak, laws of physics into motion and into existence and all of this incredible power. And then at the same time, this really petty small-mindedness where he obsesses over what people eat and who they go to bed with and what kind of haircuts they have. To me, that's just silly. Something about those two things existing side by side just makes me laugh and seems to me a little, silly. What do you think?
Yeah, I do concede that, like, in the Old Testament, he seemed somewhat tribal in the way that he would, like, act. And it seemed, like, kind of redundant talking about, like, random, like, what to eat or what to wear, of course. Yeah. But I don't think the concept of God in like, philosophy is very silly, though. I think it's, like, necessary.
Why do you think it's necessary? I mean, we can look at it from a slightly more serious philosophical point of view. I'm going to join you on that journey, but why do you think it's necessary?
Oh, yeah. So you would look at certain like transcendentals or universals, and you would say, if these existed, what would need to be the case for these to exist? And that's where I think something like a metaphysical primary is like necessary.
Yeah, I hear you.
Do you mean universals like the laws of logic?
Yes.
Yeah, so like a tag
That's more of a
argument.
transcendental, but transcendental. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems to me that in any world it would be absurd for example, the moon to be able to exist and not exist simultaneously. That just seems to be a brute fact of reality. Like, what would it mean for the moon to both exist and not exist, right?
Yeah.
So now, if you're saying that requires like a god or a thinking agent or something for that to be the case. Like, what's the evidence for that?
Yeah. So when you say a brute fact, are you like an Aristotelian approach? Is this like it's like a semantic idea?
Well, what I mean is, it's like it's the way the world functions. Like, we can't have like a circle square, because a circle square isn't a thing. It's either defined one way or the other. It's a circle or a square, or it's neither. The moon cannot exist and not exist simultaneously. That's the law of non-contradiction. The transcendental argument basically says, well, that requires a grounding, and that grounding is God. I'm open-minded to that. Now, intuitively, it just seems to be a fact of reality, because it seems silly for it to be otherwise, for like to have a moon that both exists and not exists.
Yeah.
However, I'm open-minded if somebody says, no, that law, descriptive law, is actually prescriptive, and it was made by a deity. I mean, I'm open to the idea. I just would need to see evidence for that.
Yeah, and I do agree that it seems like a brute fact because it's just intertwined with reality. But
Right.
when we try to understand like the ontology, I guess I could use that word, the ontology of logic, it's like where it's not so much how do we utilize it, it's where does it really originate from or come from.
That's where you might have a slight disconnect. Forgive me for the interjection, but it might save some time. I don't think that we can just assume that logic has an ontology. I think it's just a way it's like a linguistic convention, right? It's the thing that makes the difference between the statements we say meaning something and the statements we say just being random noises, is that we organize the sounds we make into patterns that are meaningful, right? And I don't think we can get from that recognition of that fact to logic has an existence, like an ontology, as you said, and then which then demands, an originator. Where did it come from? Who made it? I don't think we need to go there.
Would you say, since it's linguistic, it's predicated on the existence of the human mind to exist?
No. The human mind is the map, so we describe the way reality functions. The place would be the abstract facts of reality, that the moon cannot both exist and not exist, that an apple can't be an apple and also simultaneously an orange. So we observe abstract facts about the way reality functions, even mathematics. And then, so the laws of logic exist as both. We conceptualize them. So in that regard, they are concepts in our mind, but we are conceptualizing our actual abstract facts of reality.
Oh, okay. So it exists in the mind. I agree that logic is abstract, but you're saying we didn't create it. We're ascertaining it from reality?
Yes, we're describing reality.
Okay, but that would be more of like a Platonist view, because you would be assuming that reality is not a part of the mind ultimately. It's something that we come to know from a different realm that is abstract.
Well, I don't know about a different realm. So we come to, I accept that the world exists. There's things in the real world, and that my mind conceptualizes them. And my job or my goal is to map my perception of reality with reality as much as I can. And I know I will also be imperfect in that endeavor.
So logic is something that we come to know through abstraction, but its origination is not from our abstraction.
Correct. They're descriptive. We're describing reality just in the same way we do with things that do have an ontology. I use the moon a lot. We can describe the moon in many ways, measure it, everything else, but the moon is there. But it's not just things that have ontology that exist independent of a mind. There's abstract facts like patterns, the way reality functions, that we are also describing.
So if logic is a part of reality, is it physical in nature or immaterial?
No, it's immaterial. It's basically a pattern. It's describing the way reality functions, not physical things in reality.
But logic exists in the mind, right?
Well, as a map that's describing the place exists too.
But I think there's a disconnect here where you're wanting both sides of the argument. You're wanting to say that it's abstract, but also that it's disconnected from the abstract.
No,
I think we have to be more like consistent if we're going to understand it.
no, it's fully abstract. It's fully abstract. There are abstract facts about the way that reality functions. There's abstract patterns, and so if the sun were a perfect sphere, and I suspect it's not, but let's say close enough, it is a fact of reality that the circumference is approximately 3.14 times the diameter. Like, that's a fact of reality, but it's an abstract fact that's describing something physical. But you can have abstract facts about things that are yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
it would
think
ultimately
Sean's
come down-
analogy of the map and the place is quite useful, and it's easy sometimes in these conversations to get confused between the map and the place. So we use words and sentences and concepts to describe things and to describe relationships between, say, propositions, right? And that's kind of the stuff that keeps the words we say meaningful. Inference rules are just definitionally true, right? They're just brute. It's just a brute fact that they work, right? If I presume you understand what that means. They don't need grounding in order to work. They just work. There's no conceivable reality in which they don't work. Modus ponens is not going to stop working because it's not. We don't define a grounding for it. It's still going to be true whether it's grounded or not. And so it's not clear to me what value the grounding adds.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I would also say that we know that logic is abstract, so it exists in the mind. Are you familiar with the causal adequacy principle?
No.
It's just basically something of a particular reality can't create more reality than what it pertains to, which is just a bunch of words. But what that means is, like, if you have like a cup of coffee and it's 70 degrees, if you put your finger in it, it can't turn it 80 degrees. It can only turn it 70 because it can only produce as much reality as what it pertains to. If we agree, which I'm sure we all do, that logic is universal, but we're subjective, yet logic is a part of our mind, and our mind is subjective, how are we able to produce more reality and see logic as objective when we're not objective? That's why the Christian gets away with it, because they're assuming an objective mind.
I'm not sure I follow you all the way along that line of reasoning in terms of creating more reality. I'm not sure we can really quantify it in that way. Something feels a bit fishy to me about that analogy. I can't quite put my finger on what, so you'll have to forgive me.
It seems very dense. I don't mean to make it all dense.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I don't think that you're here trying to be, obscurantist, but I don't quite. Something about the, forgive me, logic there doesn't really make sense, and I just think. I sort of all of these arguments, these transcendental arguments, and the sort of logic-y arguments around this, always feel a bit like word games to me. They never feel like the reason why somebody believes in a God. They always strike me as sort of clever-sounding intellectual constructs that people come up with after the fact to justify their faith in a way that sounds academically plausible. But I don't know anyone who found faith through these kinds of arguments, and they just feel a bit contrived to me, and they don't to me they don't actually solve any problems. They just relabel things. So I have this idea in my head of like a terminus, right? There's got to be a point at which things just are because they just are, and I sense that you think that point exists too, right? For me, like just the brute fact of logic being an accurate description of meaning between propositions and relationships between propositions, I'm happy to just accept that as necessarily true. If you say, well, that needs to have been created by something else, or grounded by something else, or produced somehow by something else, well, then you're taking that something else to be the terminus, right? So I think that you and I are both agreeing there's a terminus. You're just postulating one additional one and labeling it God, and then declaring that relabeling an explanation. And I just find that intellectually unparsimonious and not pleasing for me. Just how it looks
I
to
definitely
me.
agree. I agree with the way that you're saying it, because it's very plausible in philosophy to say that it's just a brute fact. But the problem with that is when we're trying to like justify universals or anything of that matter, a brute fact is ultimately axiomatic, which just means that it's taken to be true without any sort of like extra reference. And when I ask for like justification of logic and you invoke an axiom, that doesn't justify anything, because by definition, they're unjustifiable. It's just it is because it is. But how do you know that that's the case? That's why you can't really use an axiom to ground universals.
Well, it's kind of
you have to
definitionally
show
true.
that you have to show that it needs a grounding. So basically, you're taking it further and saying God is the necessary being instead of there just being necessary ways in which reality functions. And you're saying, well, I have this God that explains it. But from my perspective, unless you show that God actually exists and created the laws of logic, you haven't solved the issue either.
Yeah, and how I would go about doing that is we would have to like define what logic is together, which we could do, and then I would say, well, does this match up with what my presupposition of what God would be? Like how we were talking about, we both agree that logic is abstract, right?
Yes, the laws of logic are abstract. That doesn't
And
mean a product of the mind necessarily. It just means abstract.
right, and they're universal,
Yeah,
and they're immaterial,
yeah.
obviously, and
Well,
they're not
abstract
changing.
and immaterial. Saying it's abstract and
Yeah,
immaterial is sort of tautological. So it's abstract, it's universal. And go ahead.
but one does presuppose a mind. But anyway,
No, I don't.
well, something that's immaterial could exist without a mind.
Be careful,
Possibly,
careful,
right?
careful not to be smuggling
on what you mean by-
existence.
Yeah, it depends on what you mean by existed. If you mean exist in an ontological sense, no. So put it this way: if all humans and all minds disappeared, I have no reason to believe, and it still seems absurd that the moon could not exist and not exist at the same time. So when you have physical things and you have a reality, there's going to be patterns in which reality functions within itself. Those patterns are not like physical objects. And so what you're doing is you're saying, well, these are abstract, non-physical. Minds are abstract and non-physical. Therefore, they can only exist with a mind, and that doesn't really track.
Okay, yeah. Then I won't say that. Then it's a good point.
No, yeah.
So
so-
we're 15 minutes into the discussion, and I can tell you something, which is that we've got a couple of hundred people listening to us do this, and most people aren't interested in really hearing these sorts of discussions because there's a disconnect between what people are talking about when they speak about God and religion and faith and devotion and salvation and all of these kind of religious-y concepts, right? There's a massive sort of intellectual and emotional disconnect between all of those conversations that take place in everyday life and these very sort of ivory tower type discussions about do logical principles have ontology and all of that stuff. I don't think that kind of stuff really connects to the core topic here. So the reason I do this stuff, right, just to sort of a quick FYI, is I think that that religious faith provides something to a lot of people. Right, there are millions of people whose lives are enriched and helped by their faith. I don't ever argue against that idea, but there's a downside to belief-based salvation doctrines, which is basically they tell people that they are deserving of punishment if they don't believe the right things. And so the reason my channel exists is to really push back hard on that. And I do that in a few ways. One is I argue that belief isn't a choice, and that's a whole different discussion, which we love getting into. And the other is really just, it's helpful for people who have been scarred by this kind of thinking to realize that the whole edifice, the whole lot, is just a bit silly. And so that's why I always bring it back eventually to, yes, all of these logical arguments are interesting and the academic philosophy stuff is interesting. It's not something that I'm highly trained in. But ultimately, I always come back to like the God who tells people where they have to, bury their shit around the camp, and the God who is very upset about making sure, you don't eat the wrong type of seafood, or the God who tells women that they must be subservient to men, and like the real world stuff. That's where I think these conversations become a bit more meaningful to an audience and to people who who could go and watch videos on YouTube about academic philosophy if they wanted to, but they've come here to hear slightly different discussions. And that's not to run away from the philosophical ideas. It's more just to contextualize them. Do you see what I mean?
Well, yeah, it is your channel, and if you don't want to talk about like the heavy philosophy, that's fine. That's usually my forte, though.
Yeah, I can hear that. And you've got a good grasp of this subject matter, and it isn't even so much that I don't want to talk about it. It's more, there's a feeling of the attention falling away because these are conversations that my audience hear all the time, and it's always the same conversation. It's always, how do you ground logic, and how do you, what are the necessary preconditions for intelligibility, and all of this kind of stuff. And everybody rolls their eyes and they say, start the Philbro timer, and it's like there's a point where we've all had exactly this conversation lots of times. So I prefer to talk about, the implications for morality and living and being a normal human being of these ideas, because that's where I think the human value really lies.
Okay, well, then if that's the case, I will probably have to give you a very Neanderthal argument.
You wouldn't be the first.
That's fine. I would just take it by faith then, if that's the argument. If you're going to ask me why believe in this God, because I love him.
Right. So that to me is immediately a much more authentic and honest answer, which I can appreciate. I appreciate you saying that, right? I don't necessarily think it's rational, because I don't think taking things by faith is a good approach to getting to what's true, right? I think if you look at the world now, we can agree that there are at least 1 billion people in the world right now who believe false things on faith. So that's a demonstration that faith is like a really bad epistemic approach and like an approach for life. But if that brings you meaning for you in your life and enriches your life, I don't have a problem with that. I just have a problem when your faith tells me I deserve to be punished for not having it. Then we have an issue.
Yeah, well, of course, I'm devoid of all my empiricism, and I if that's because I'm just giving you an emotional response when I say that.
Sure,
but
that's honest.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah, ShowTube, I just sent you a follow request. If we see each other on another live, I'll be happy to dive into not that I'm Mr. Philbro myself, but I do enjoy discussing philosophical topics and angles and such. And I want to make it clear, you have not come up here and acted like a Philbro and trying to bully people with esoteric language. You've been a very honest interlocutor, and I've enjoyed talking to you so far.
Oh, likewise. Thank you, guys. I do have to go soon, if that's a good cue.
Yeah, that's a good cue. But thanks for starting us off in a respectful and pleasant way. You've been really nice.
Yeah, I got you. I'll see you guys later.
Appreciate it. All right, take it easy.
All right, good talking to you, ShowTube.
Thanks. Okie dokie. Yeah, it's a funny one, that, because I don't want it to sort of seem like we don't enjoy getting into philosophical discussions. We do, and they're interesting and they're fascinating. But it's the exact same conversation that we've had so many times, and I'm aware of the fact that people don't come here to listen to all of that stuff again and again and again. It's not that interesting. So it's tricky, isn't it? Balancing that.
Yeah. When they're honest like he is, I have a lot more tolerance for it, and
he was nice
to dive into it.
He wasn't here to try to assert dominance and make things needlessly complicated and stuff. He was arguing in good faith, and I thought it was really honest of him to say, ultimately, I believe because I have faith. I think that was that was a good move. Okay, so
Agreed.
just quick, tiny bit of housekeeping. So if you're on the YouTube side, the link. It's the usual one. It's right above me over here. tinyurl.com/JCguest. That'll get you in. Alan has already done that, and we'll be with Alan shortly. And we have some friends lining up on the TikTok side as well that we will also get to shortly. Very, very exciting news about the Believer Bingo is now fully active. So I will be putting the links to the Believer Bingo in both chats. There's two levels of Believer Bingo though, because we now have interactive Believer Bingo, which is only for channel members. So if you're not a channel member, you can still follow along with the Believer Bingo with the sort of public link. But if you have the members link, you can actually click a square on the Believer Bingo yourself. If you hear one of the arguments used, then I get a little notification, and if I approve it, the square lights up and you get the win. Your name goes in the square under the argument. So you can really get involved, but you just do need to be that particular feature is for for members on the YouTube side. But if you're not a member, you can still be involved with the public link. So I'll put those out there so you guys can use them and follow along if you want to do that. Okay, and finally, just if you are on the YouTube side, it really helps if you like the live. That just helps the algorithm to know that it's a thing. We've got stiff competition tonight. I think Justin is streaming and Bible Guy is streaming, and who else did you say, Sean? Who else is up tonight? There's a few.
Godless Engineer is streaming.
So John's on it.
A couple other big names too. So it's pretty active tonight. So yeah. I have a feeling a lot of people will be channel surfing.
Yeah, which is fine, of course.
Yeah, of course you want to hang out here, of course.
This is the best place, obviously, but we're happy to share. Okay, so with that, we're going to go over to the YouTube queue and bring in Alan. Hey, Alan.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
How are you doing, John?
Very well indeed. How are you doing?
Could be better, you know.
We could always be better, but let's see if we can make things better for you now. What would you like to say?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that He's our Lord and Savior.
Okay.
He died for our sins, and
so they say,
so that Indians could get hit by trains and niggers could smoke menthol cigarettes.
Yeah, well, that's just idiotic, isn't it? Waited all that time to come and make a clown of yourself. I'm not sure what that achieves, but anyway, moving swiftly on. Unbelievable. There we are. Okay, back to the TikTok side. The IQ of the next caller is going to be 1,000 times the IQ of the previous caller, and I would say that if the next caller was a log. Yeah, and now the live has been restricted, possibly because of that, but I wonder why. That's odd. Live is restricted for 10 minutes, not eligible for recommendation. I wonder why, but there we are. It could be because of our previous friend. We're going to bring in Elizabeth on the TikTok side, who we've spoken to before, who is absolutely lovely. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, John. How are you? Hey, Sean.
Hey, how you doing?
Very well indeed.
I'm okay. I actually spent the day today watching old lives that you guys had put out and was watching them on YouTube while I worked. And it was helping process stuff that I had talked about yesterday with my therapist, because we've been talking about how my religious trauma has affected so much stuff in my life, and like it's brought on a lot of my eating disorder and how it's brought on a lot of my addictions that I deal with and a lot of the other things that I deal with, how the religious trauma has just affected all of that. And when I sat in therapy, I started like spewing out all these religious cognitions that I had and beliefs that I had. And I put it together as I watched you today that I honestly had no choice but to believe them when I believed them.
Yeah.
And it was like that awakening moment of, okay, I didn't have a choice. Like I had to believe them at that moment. Like when I was a kid and I was indoctrinated into this and I was beat over the head with this stuff, like I had to believe this stuff. And, you know, it was that first moment of at least a breath as I sat and worked today and I listened to you guys talk to other people, and you had some doozies on today. You had, as I was listening, and I don't even remember what date I was listening to. It was one of your old ones, but you had some doozies that came on that were yelling and screaming at you guys. It was just that concept of I can't choose it, and I can't, like, I didn't choose it back then, and I didn't, just like I didn't choose it now, I didn't choose it back then.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's, I don't know, that's just been huge over that last little bit. And I guess thank you for that, because
well, I'm so pleased.
it's really huge.
Thank you for saying that, and I'm so pleased. And when I decided to write a book about this, my primary motivation for wanting to do this, the thing that made me have such a strong need to express this idea and get it out there and try to share it, was that I understood intuitively that if people understand this, there's a path to forgiveness and self-compassion, both for the ideas they used to have and for the ideas they no longer have. There's a dual benefit, right? Because you get to forgive yourself when you realize you had no choice but to believe those things. You were convinced of them from an early age by people who you had to trust, because children have to trust the people around them. Our brains are wired to do that. You had no choice. You were indoctrinated in them, and you had no choice but to believe them. And then when you reached a point where you were able to think for yourself, and you realized that these ideas don't stack up and they don't make sense, and you didn't find them convincing anymore, at that point, you had no choice but to not believe them. And so there's no blame at all for anyone in this stuff. And it's such a powerful and important point. So I'm really pleased to hear that it's helping you to realize that. It really means a lot to know that that's helping you.
It really is, and I'm enjoying listening to it, and I'm enjoying walking through the moments and listening to the different debates and the different ways that people are coming about their realizations, and it's helping me come to my realizations as I'm doing it. And I'm listening to you, and I'm listening to Justin. I go back and forth between the two, and it's how I get through my work day every day. And I'm glad I work from home, because I can, and I can just learn, and I can get my information, and I can rebuild a new foundation of information that I now can believe on things
Yeah.
that I'm okay with.
Good for
Yeah,
you.
that intellectual freedom is one of the biggest things. It was one of the biggest things for me. If we talk about, because sometimes there's negatives, you lose, community, what have you, when you lose your faith. But there's also positives. And one of the biggest ones that for me and others that I've talked to is that intellectual freedom, the ability to explore what you believe, learn about things, engage with moral questions or what have you, without having someone else or some book telling you how to think and what to think. That intellectual freedom is one of the biggest things that we gain. So enjoy that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. I've had to find some positives. I lost a lot. I actually used to play piano, and I haven't been able to touch it since I left the church, because I only played for church, and I haven't been able to go back and play since I left. And so it's like they stole my music from me. They stole what I spent years learning how to do.
You are going to get
And
that back. I'm telling you, you are going to get that back,
yeah,
because I have a background as a musician, and I know what it takes to get to a point of being able to do that and having it in you, and it's not going to go away. You might have a bit of a blockage around it because of association, but it's not going anywhere. It'll be there for you when you're ready, and you will find a joy in music in a different way, and you're going to get it back. And I'm here for it. I want to hear about that.
yeah, I hope to. I want to again. I really do want to again. I can't wait till that freedom comes back. It's just taking time, and I'm just not ready yet. So
Sure, in your own
I
time.
can't wait till I'm ready.
In your own time.
I,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
ready. I'm ready for it too. I want to hear it when you pick up the piano again.
I'll
yeah.
share when I'm ready.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Well, thanks for coming
All
back
right.
to check in with us. I'm always happy to hear from you, and really, really good realization, and you're being kind to yourself, and that's sort of what this is all about. So good for you, and we're here for you. You know that.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. I
All
appreciate
right.
it.
Take care. Bye, Elizabeth.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Yeah, it's so important. That's the reason. That's it. What she's talking about is the reason why we do this. That's what it's all about. So she expressed it beautifully. I'm just going to read a couple of messages, and then we're going to get Ash in after that. So straight out the gate, we've got Tim. Hey Tim, thank you for this. I'm an ally all day, but surely not the entire Siberian Orchestra is trans. An ally, sorry. And I walked into the pronoun forest and touched a bush. Now I'm itchy. Itchy? Oh, come on.
Oh,
they keep coming.
wow.
They keep coming. And then if that last super chat was too much, I apologize. I don't know where the line is until I cross it. Well, you know, you put so much work into your input to the channel. I think you probably get a wider latitude for crossing lines than others might. But thank you for that, Tim. We appreciate it very much. And next up, we've got Fliberty Giblets. Great to see you, my friend. Got a wince and oof out of MD and JDZ with this one. Walked into the confessional with my guitar, and priest said, "What's that for?" I reply, "You said you were going to show me how to finger A minor." Oh my God.
Oh no.
I mean, that is worth it, to be fair. Yeah, that's up there. What were you saying about lines, Tim? Excellent work,
I'm
Fliberty.
almost afraid of the next one.
I'm going to hit the next with a sufficient amount of trepidation and see what we get. Next one up is from Tim again. Science started with banging rocks together, FF to the Hadron Collider. The rocks are infinitely smaller. Oh, fast forward to the Hadron Collider. The rocks are infinitely smaller and infinitely faster, but bang, bang, baby. They definitely do that. That Hadron Collider stuff is absolutely wild, because the circumference of the tube that the particles are accelerated in... It's miles. It's like something crazy, like 25 miles or 30 miles or something like that. And they just... There's this huge infrastructure, you know, underground to support all of this huge energy to accelerate things in this thing. And the actual tube itself it's tiny. It's such a crazy structure. I would love to... In another life, if I was a bit smarter than I am, I would love to have got into like fundamental physics. What an unbelievably interesting field. Like, that's really awesome. So yeah, thanks for that. We appreciate that very much. Okay, as promised, we're going to get in Ash, and then after that we've got JC Rose, and then we have Baku as well. So let's move things along. Evening, Ash.
Hi, John.
How are you?
Ash, how you doing, buddy?
That's a great chat, man. It was like I joined when the I forget his name, but he had the SpongeBob character.
Oh yeah, our first guest. Yeah.
Yes. But now I've been the thing that keeps me bringing back to hear these different conversations from all sorts of from people from religious backgrounds and ones who are just trying to figure out, arguments for argument's sake, really.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm wondering more about is actually, what is the thing, because you've probably spoken to so many now people of different faiths and religions that come to it. Do they believe in their God because they were either born into it, they fear God, or they trying to decide what's the purpose of living? Like, which one?
Varies.
Probably.
It really varies. I think most people are born and raised into their religion, or influenced when they're young. They are exposed to the culture and grow into it. But there's other people who convert later on in life, and I don't know that fear of hell makes anyone believe. I don't suspect it does very often, if at all. However, it's very effective in keeping people believing.
Yeah,
and it's counterintuitive to say that, because we always say belief isn't a choice. So why would a threat prevent you from stopping believing if it's not a choice? But what it does do is stop you, and it stopped me for a while, from doing honest introspection and reflection. Anytime doubts would come into my mind when I was much younger, I would worry about hell, and I'd be like, "Oh, get that out of your mind. Stop thinking about that. Stop thinking about that." And it's a thought stopper.
Yeah.
is it in a lot of faiths that they actually stop you from questioning your belief, like it's written in that Bible or so, where it's like it's like the devil trying to convince you. There's temptations. Don't use your mind, basically.
Yeah, and they're actually coded in the text. I mean, there are specific Bible verses that say, lean not on your own understanding, and believe as a child. And they literally, those are designed. They weren't dumb. Those Bible authors weren't dumb. The writers understood, like actually build the enjoinments against critical thinking into the text. That works as a kind of literary immune system baked into the text to stop people from thinking outside it, sort of criminalize thinking for yourself. It's brilliant. Similar things in the Quran as well.
Like you really want to free people's minds, but when they're born into it, and some of them might think like they've questioned their own faith and look at other religions and they stick with their own thinking. That's the right one. It's like, really? You sure you've not really like thought it through?
Yeah.
But it's the thing it's the human behavior of it all, because there's still that, like, there's a quote that I got from a really old computer game back in the day that says it's like, if God did not exist, it would be necessary to create him. And I'm not too sure if this is to be true or not, but just the human behavior as civilizations go. What do you think?
I think we have, if you look at it across cultures and across time, religion is a thing that keeps on happening. It keeps on happening independently. It's not like it just happened one place and spread around everywhere. Religious practice seems to be sort of baked into our nature, right? Anthropologists will say it springs up here, it springs up there. And I think the reason is because there's two things, the way I understand it. There are two things. One is that we have a very low tolerance for ambiguity and I don't know. People are not comfortable with I don't know. We like to have answers for things. And when we don't have answers, there's this weird instinct that it's better to have some answer than no answer. I actually don't go there myself. I'd rather just say, well, we don't know. And for me, that's absolutely fine. But there is an intolerance for I don't know. And then when you couple that with the instinct that human brains have to perceive agency in things, and you can see why our brains might have evolved that way, because I've used this example before, but our ancestors 150 or 200,000 years ago in Africa, if you heard a rustling in the bush, well, it could be just the wind, or it could be a predator coming to eat you. And if you assumed that it was just a predator coming to eat you, and you assume the risk, you're going to have a survival advantage over the others that have less brains that don't do that kind of thing. So you can see how natural selection may have favored brains that
from a survival.
Favored brains that saw agency in things. And so when you combine the need to see agency with an intolerance for ambiguity and a lack of answers, that to me, and a love of storytelling is also common amongst all cultures. It's not surprising that religion would just pop up everywhere you look. But we're outgrowing it now. We don't need it anymore.
Hey, it's because science has got to like a much more higher level where it doesn't make sense that the world is only 6,000 years ago. Like, there's frameworks like the sun did not happen after the earth, like in Genesis. We know these things, and it's just like it undoes a lot of the science back. But they keep moving the goalpost depending on like who you're having the argument with, I guess. But no, it's just human behavior and things that really do fascinate me. And I guess the receptiveness of the mind, and like where people get really much manipulated in ways of thinking in these different doctrines of, it's a bit of craziness. But I just hope you free more minds, my friend.
Well, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. Thanks, Ash.
But pleasure, guys.
Pleasure to speak to you. Take care, my friend. Cheers. Okay, that was Ash. We're going to bring in JC Rose next. Hey, JC.
Hello.
How are you?
Hey, what's going on, buddy?
What's up? So, I don't know. I wanted to start. So, God is silly. So, I don't know. So, do you think Jesus was a silly guy?
Well, I'm not convinced. I'm not totally convinced that Jesus existed. I know that the majority opinion amongst scholars are that there was someone that started all of this off, and obviously there was someone who was at the center of this cult that sprung up. But I don't think we can know very much about him. I strongly suspect that a significant part of what's written about him is embellishments or completely just made up. And I think, he probably was quite silly because, he got himself nailed to a piece of wood for saying the wrong things and breaking the blasphemy laws and being a naughty boy. He was, didn't play it smart, apparently.
Okay. So you don't question that he existed. You just question the things that are said about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think things like, you think about how ridiculous it is that the story tells us he's walking in the garden of of Gethsemane and having this conversation. Well, who was there to document the conversation, right? These things are just accepted. Well, who was documenting that conversation? Who was it? And nobody wrote any of this stuff down for at least 30 or 40 years after the events, at the earliest, right? The gap from the crucifixion to the Gospel of Mark is some number of decades, right? So we are expected to believe that in this culture where, stories were just handed around, there was lots of myth making, it was a pre-scientific, highly superstitious environment with lots of storytelling and lots of, that kind of superstitious, supernatural thinking and very, very unsophisticated, if you like, that details about specific conversations would have been preserved for decades, when we know even in the world we live in now, that kind of detail doesn't really last unless you're very, very thorough about documenting things. I can't remember the details of conversations I had last week with people, let alone, passing a story around amongst a bunch of different people for 30 or 40 years until someone thinks to write it down somewhere, and then everybody accepting it as if it's an accurate description of events. That to me is preposterous.
Are you familiar with the minimalist arguments?
Yeah. No, I'm not sure if I am, but Sean apparently is.
Yeah. So this is an argument for the risen Jesus. Go ahead.
Oh, is this Swinburne?
Yeah,
no,
I think
no.
so.
Well,
No, I thought it was
Swinburne does a
Swinburne.
Bayesian thing.
I find the
minimalist. Yeah. You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I find the Bayesian arguments a bit silly because they're sort of estimating probabilities of stuff and then compounding the probabilities to say, if we assume the probability of a God is existing is this or I think I don't find them convincing. Do you?
They're interesting, I would say. They're interesting to think about. I don't find them that convincing either. I like to look at other things. Mm-hmm. So when I say the minimalist type of arguments, like the minimal facts argument, it's just that Jesus, we're going to take the few facts that most scholars would agree with, put them on the table, and then have the skeptic try to explain them. So those would be, Jesus obviously existed, was crucified. That's a minimal fact or a minimal thing. And that people after he was crucified were convinced that he had resurrected. And some of these people actually were convinced that they had experiences with him. And that's why they were convinced that he is alive. So that's kind of the minimal facts.
You said something interesting there, and have the non-believer try to explain them. But yeah. I don't... you said something to that effect. So I don't know, maybe you were speaking quickly or colloquially. So you don't think we necessarily have to have an explanation in order to reject the claims that Jesus actually rose from the dead, right?
You don't need to have explanations to reject it. I mean, you don't necessarily need an explanation to reject that. It's more likely than not, but
yeah. The way I look at it, I look at a claim, even if someone said like, here's my alternative theory to Jesus rising from the dead. This guy was lying and that guy was lying and that guy was lying. I'm not going to even believe his claim or her claim unless they provide sufficient evidence for that explanation, right? So I'm in a position right now where I say, I don't know. What is your evidence that he actually rose from the dead? And for me, I need for something that's miraculous, like someone literally rising from the dead. I need more than people thought it or people said it. I have to have more.
Well, here's the thing, right? So if we take, like, let's say there's 4 people, would you grant that there's 4 people that were convinced that they had experiences with Jesus and from those experiences thought he was alive? I know that's
I'm not even sure we can grant that.
Question, but
I'm not even sure we can grant that.
I'm weak on biblical history, and so I'm going to stay agnostic to that. I know JC. I trust that you're an honest interlocutor and you study this stuff a lot. So I'm happy to take you at your word on it. But like, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there's like some absolute consensus, right? That there's 4 individuals that were absolutely convinced that they had experiences with Jesus and that they saw him. There are skeptics who have said this, like Ehrman. You know, Ehrman has said Paul, Peter, James, and Mary likely had experiences. You know, he said in his blog they likely had, you know, what he calls visionary experiences. And I think what's weird about this is that we actually don't have in the scientific literature any case in which, let's say, more than even 3 people, but 4 or 5 people or more claiming to have seen someone alive after they passed away by ways of a hallucination is just extremely rare, if not unprecedented.
But I always come back to Hume on miracles. Time and time again, when we have these arguments which are like, well, what's more likely? The moment we get into the realm of the what's more likely, David Hume pops into my head. I don't even need to invite him. He just appears. And I remember, you know, Hume's idea that, you know, it only makes sense to accept a miracle as true if the falseness of the accounts were to be a bigger miracle than the miracle being claimed, right? That's a really good principle through which to look at all of this stuff. So even if we end up in a position of saying the chances of this, let's call it a cult, because in the early days it was a cult, it arguably still is, but the chances of this cult springing up around this guy who died, if it not been the case that so and so number of people really thought so and so, even if those chances are really low, it's still going to be, in my view, enormously more likely to be a prosaic explanation for what happened in terms of the religion starting than if we accept the claims of the religion at face value, which we then have to bring in this whole layer of the supernatural, which we then have to assume exists, and people rising from the dead, which we have to assume exists. And, you know, I think when we spoke about this last time, I think I said, you know, we would basically have to throw out all our views on what it actually means to die and all our views on brains and souls and the lack of them and all of this kind of stuff. It would be so world-changing that the alternative explanations, even if they're fuzzy, even if they're murky and ill-defined and unlikely, are still, in my view, going to be more likely on Hume's principle than taking all of this stuff at face value.
Well, I think that might also... So I think we can both agree that it's very unlikely that, you know, many individuals would believe that a person is alive that they knew, but like if they were having a hallucination. Like, you don't really think someone's alive after you've had a hallucination of them.
Don't we have examples of that in history, though?
No, I don't think so, actually.
Nero?
Nothing that's probable. Well, Nero, yeah, but that was like yeah.
Three times.
Nero is, you got me there. Nero is probably an example, yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard of others too. Like I said, my history's a little weak. I wish it were stronger for these types of conversations. But I've heard not just Nero, but others. Apparently, resurrections were a common thing back then. Not actual resurrections, but the belief in people believing these things. They were more susceptible to those types of beliefs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, something like a claim like the disciples believed they saw Jesus is a world apart from they actually saw Jesus, right? Saying people had experiences that they interpreted in a certain kind of way, some number of people, doesn't take account of the potential for them just having been mistaken, been tricked, made it up, that they didn't even have those experiences and other people said they did, or, there's so many factors, and the factors all compound, right? If we want to talk about Bayesian, that every weak link in the chain of events that we use to build the explanatory narrative is a vulnerability, a point of failure in the chain. And I just think at the end, the chain doesn't support very much weight, in my mind, when you consider what it is that's actually being claimed here. Again, I'm mindful of extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, right? This is not extraordinary evidence. It's mundane. It's just not. It's not strong enough to do the job that it's trying to do.
I think it establishes that the natural explanations are extremely rare, and if they are so rare, and let's say the prior probability of a God is not even that high, just plausible and whatnot, the likelihood of resurrection is pretty substantial. I mean, that's kind of how the Bayesian checks out there, but
yeah. I can't follow you there. Yeah, I can't follow you there, because we would plug different numbers into that equation, and these kind of calculations have a sensitive dependence on initial conditions, right? So it's if you stack the numbers a certain way at the beginning, you get a massive change at the end. And I don't think that we would end up.
But would you say that if there were actually, let's say, many people that had these experiences and interpreted them as, Jesus being alive, that there's nothing really comparable to this outside of, let's say, the Nero thing in history or in the scientific literature?
I wouldn't. I would suspect, and I can't speak to this with authority, but I suspect that you would find many examples of people claiming things like this throughout different cultures over the ages. This is not an area where I have expertise.
Especially with respect to cults. When you have like cults pop up, it wouldn't surprise me at all if there are all kinds of claims about experiences that seem to be supernatural in nature, and
so when I'm looking at all of these claims throughout history, I mean, people bring me up things like Romulus, Nero, Aristeas, these people, but it's not like in any of these cases, like for Aristeas, we don't have good evidence that people at the time of Aristeas claimed that they saw him alive again. It comes from Herodotus writing like 200 years afterwards. Similar evidence for Romulus,
but similarly with Jesus.
Eyewitness.
But buddy, we don't have that for Jesus either. All we have is accounts of what other people say they saw. This hearsay is
we
all
have
we
these
have
accounts from 20 years after. That's like way less time than 200 years after the fact. I mean, 200 years after the fact.
But it's still crappy. That may be true. But it's looking at counter examples and the weakness in them doesn't strengthen an already weak argument on the side of
my point is that it's just very unique that in history I don't suspect that you're going to find something where many people, and by many people I'm not even being too stringent here, I'm being quite charitable, I'm saying even 5 or more people claiming to have seen the same person alive again after they died. I actually don't think there's a claim like this in the literature or in history.
I would bet there is. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that from
outside of Nero. Nothing that has good evidence. Nothing that a historian would say it's probable that these people claimed that they saw this person.
Yeah. I think you just put way more weight in testimony than John or I do. I can definitely speak for myself on that.
Yeah.
Even in testimony is notoriously unreliable, even in courtrooms. It's like if all you have is testimony and no physical evidence or other corroborating evidence of any kind. Testimony alone just doesn't do it for me, especially for a literal resurrection.
But so if that were true, if what I was saying was true, and this was an unparalleled thing, wouldn't that be a little suspect? Wouldn't you expect for if what I said is actually true? Now you can fact check me on this and dig deep in that. But if that is true, wouldn't you expect other cults to have like a comparable claim about seeing a person alive again, literally alive?
I haven't researched it. It might be the case. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah, if it were the case, like, and there isn't one, but would you expect there to be one? And if there wasn't one, wouldn't you find that a little suspect?
I mean, now, like I said, testimony alone, like for a literal miracle, isn't going to do it for me. I don't accept testimony for extraterrestrial encounters or Bigfoot, and I'm not trying to be dismissive with these examples, but like, I mean, you can watch entire documentaries and interview witnesses for these outlandish things, and I don't believe them either.
But there's a lot of claims of Bigfoot and aliens, right? Like people claim that they've been abducted by aliens a lot. People claim they see Bigfoot a lot. But do a group of 5 or more people shortly after somebody's passed that they know say that they're alive again? Does that happen?
I can't answer you because I haven't like researched it or looked into it.
It would surprise me if it doesn't. It would surprise me if it doesn't.
I'm telling you, that's why I find it such an interesting thing, because I don't think there is cases like this. That, again, the historian would say, okay, it's probable that these people at this time claimed that happened.
I don't think you'd necessarily hear about them, right? Because if your source for this is looking at what historians have written about, well, for historians to be writing about things, then they need to have achieved a certain gravity, right? Culturally, they need to have achieved a certain impact, right? Like,
I can agree with that,
right?
Yeah.
And so you need to begin with the assumption that the vast majority of cases like this never get written about by historians. We don't know about them.
That's
it happens
true.
all. It happens all the time, and people are fantastically gullible, and people in emotional need are prone to all sorts of things. And I just think the bottom line here is that the competing explanations for this are so much more parsimonious. They're so much more likely than having to assume that miracles are possible, assume that a God exists, assume that a God would raise someone. All the stuff that you have to assume is baggage in terms of the interpretation of this cultural moment that you're proposing. So I can't come with you on that journey.
I just don't see a good reason. I see what you're saying, but I just don't see a good reason why I would prefer some type of hallucination or dream type of hypothesis in light of the fact that we know, based on our current available data, and I'm going to cite this neuroscientist James Fodor here, he's an atheist. He says it's very, very, very rare that, you'll say someone is alive by virtue of a hallucination.
It can be very rare.
I would suspect not a dream, right?
Very rare things happen all the time.
But when we're talking about many people saying this, it's not just a person, isolated person. It's many people. So
let's imagine the chances are 1 million to 1.
Truly insane.
Let's imagine the chances are 10 million to 1. Well, when you have enough opportunities, when your sample is large enough, you're going to get events with a probability of 10 million to 1 that happen fairly regularly. When your time span is all of human history across culture, all of that, you would expect that very, 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 very rare events happen. The chances of winning a lottery is extremely low, millions to 1, and yet it happens all the time. So
what if it's not even like scientifically documented, or it hasn't been documented scientifically? They've tried to do studies on this. They can't find a situation like this.
Yeah, I don't think we need to find situations like this. We understand how human psychology can work. And again, I'm just going to come back to Hume again. Even if I can't give you a psychologically and intellectually pleasing explanatory hypothesis for exactly what happened around these events to cause the religion to begin, even if my answer is I don't know, the principle still pertains that the alternatives to the traditional explanation are still going to be much more parsimonious, are still going to require fewer extra assumptions about things, and are going to be much easier to integrate with knowledge that we have already. And so the rational thing to do is to not accept the magical claims until there's a higher level of evidence provided, which, so far there hasn't been. It's hard to see how they could be. But, if there's a God, and God wants us to know that he's real and that he, has a son, whatever that means, that's fairly silly, but okay, then he could demonstrate it easily, right? This is the creator of the entire universe, could disabuse us all of any remaining ambiguity in a heartbeat by just going, here I am, here's the evidence, then we'd all know and these conversations would be over. But he doesn't do that. That's another data point against the veracity of the story.
If we had 500 individual written testimonies from all of these people, even that wouldn't be anything to change your mind, right?
It would be a stronger case than it is, but it would still fail Hume's test.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So I'm winding down here. I guess we've
Sure.
covered
Yeah,
everything,
we're going to move on in a moment.
But what I would say is the last thing I would say, and I don't know. You're saying that it's more parsimonious and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Why should I prefer, a hypothesis that, what naturalistic explanation are you talking about? Are you talking about hallucinations, dreams?
I don't even have to give one. I can just say, some combination of factors under a naturalistic worldview are going to be much more likely as an explanation, as a candidate explanation, even without being specific about them. I can say, I don't know what they are, but I believe that it's some combination of human psychology and mistakes and deception, let's say. Some combination of that in that mix, right? A mix of those factors is what happened here. And I'm I feel very confident saying that that's a much more likely candidate explanation than the creator of the universe arranged for all of this to happen in some weird scheme.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's just if hallucinations aren't an adequate explanation, obviously I don't think that it wins on explanatory power. It seems like an inadequate explanation for this data. Resurrection seems like a pretty adequate explanation for it.
That's where we
agree
differ,
with John.
I think.
A mix of people believing a thing and deception is far more likely than he literally rose from the dead.
I'm just going to introduce
and is the
this.
son of the all creator. Yeah,
exactly. It's just a message from Bethos. Lovely to see you, Bethos. Thanks for this. Anonymous authors claim that others claim they saw the risen Christ, comparing to the many people living today claiming they saw Elvis after he died, right? So there's a comparison right now.
But it's not people that knew Elvis.
It doesn't matter. That they didn't know him doesn't matter. Well, for me, the fact that they knew him makes this story even less likely, because it introduces a whole overlay of emotional, investment, which makes it more reasonable to suspect that there was some kind of,
hallucination,
self-deception of some sort, But I think we can keep on going around this. This roundabout a lot, but I'm just going to stick with David Hume and say he had it nailed. His principle is the one to think about here.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Good talk, man. Good talk.
And you, always nice to speak to you.
Great to talk to you, JC.
Yeah. Thanks, JC. Take it easy.
All right, have a good one.
Thanks. Okay, we've had some good guests in. Disagreements, but good guests. We're going to go stay on the TikTok side with 231 Go, and then we've got Julius after that and Joshua as well in the queue. Thank you for being patient, friends. We'll get to you. So this is 231 Go. Hello. Are you there, 231 Go?
He's still morphing in.
Still
I don't
morphing
think he's
in.
Fully.
Oh, yes. We're not in yet.
That broken Star Trek transporter.
There we go.
There we go.
That's not true. I'm still here.
We got you. We got you. It just took a while to bring you in.
Whoopsie
Hello.
daisies. I guess it took a whoopsie daisies to get me on here.
Yeah.
Appreciate you having me on here. Thank
No problem. No problem. Welcome.
Okay. Look, I vehemently disagree with everything that you say that comes out of your mouth.
Vehemently, that's awesome. Okay, good. I like that. That's better than mildly. If you came up and said I mildly disagree with you, it would be less interesting.
Yeah. And let me say why. And let me say why.
Sure.
Because you despise God.
I don't.
You despise him.
No, I don't.
And I can't understand why somebody who is a created being would despise his creator.
Well, I despise God in the same way that I despise Darth Vader, in that I sort of look at the character of a fictional character in a book and I think, bit of a jerk, right? Not someone I would want to hang with. But I don't despise God in any literal sense because I don't think there's anyone there to despise. I think it's a made-up story.
Darth Vader didn't create you.
He didn't, and that's another thing he has in common with God.
Do you think John or I believe that God created us? 2, 3, 1, go.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What?
Well, if we don't believe God exists, that means we don't believe he created us, right? And you started by saying, I don't see how you could despise a being that created you or something to that effect. I mean, you have to know if we don't believe he exists, we don't believe. Hold on. You got to let me finish. You got to let me finish.
Sure.
Yeah, so it wouldn't follow that we believe that claim. So you should meet us where we are, right?
No, why do I have to meet you where you are?
To have a fruitful conversation.
Yeah. Hold on. I said I vehemently disagree with your position. Why do I have to meet you in the middle?
That's not what Sean means. Sean doesn't mean that we have to compromise on what we believe. What Sean means is that if you want to have a productive conversation, it's best to engage with the position that somebody. Hang on. Listen, the position is best to engage with the position that someone holds, rather than the position that you imagine they hold. So you telling me that I hate God is as ridiculous as me telling you that you hate Puff the Magic Dragon.
It's okay, which is fine, no problem. Like, let's have a conversation about that. Why do you hate
without
God?
Interrupting each other?
Hang on. Are you tracking? Because I just explained to you why it's silly.
Why do you hate God?
Okay, hang on. Calm down and listen. Because there's two ways this conversation can go right now. Literally, we're at a fork in the road right now. This moment. We can have a grown-up conversation where we are legitimately responsive to what each other actually say, or we can have a conversation where we ignore what the other person says and we just preach. So I would like to encourage you towards the former, because the latter is not going to go well. I mean, to be honest, they're both not going to go well, but the earlier one, where we can actually engage with the other properly, is going to be more productive. So it would be good if you can stop telling us that we hate God and engage with the idea that we don't think there's a God there to hate.
Probably not a good idea by me to say that. Probably. I agree with you.
Good. Okay, so let's reset.
Right. Yeah, if we're going to have a formal discussion, probably it be that I be cordial.
It isn't even about cordial or not. It isn't even about cordiality. I mean, that's lovely. We can all be cordial, and that's what we try to do here. It isn't about that. It's about listening. It's about.
Hold on a second. Then what it is about? What it is about? What it is.
You mean what is it about?
Silly the way that I say it.
Right. You want to say what is it about?
What it is about.
Yeah.
What it is about.
Yeah.
Goodness. What is it about?
Is that a statement or a question?
It's a question.
Okay, what is it about? What it's about is that I think that the whole argument, the whole idea of a sort of celestial policeman in the sky who made everything is ludicrous. And then I think that depending on exactly what your conception of God is, so if you're a Christian, so you believe not only that there's some kind of super mind up in the sky who made everything, but that he also really, really cares about what kind of seafood you eat, what kind of haircut you have, and who you go to bed with. That's ludicrous.
Let me ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. Look, let's go away with the fact that you think that there's a being in the sky that created you. Which, whoopsie daisies, how do you think that you were created in the first place? But let's put that point aside, okay? And you tell me, like, why you think that it is important or not important, I guess. What kind of fish you ate? What? What does that mean? I don't understand the point of you saying, like, okay, so you're talking about the book of Leviticus, correct? Whenever
Yeah.
you're talking about eating fish or shrimp or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the book of Leviticus?
Why is God so interested in what people eat?
Hold on a second. I'm asking you if you know the book of Leviticus. Do you know the book of Leviticus? Because you're questioning the book of Leviticus.
I am.
Okay, fine. Do you know the book of Leviticus? I'm asking.
I mean, if it's going to be quiz time, I don't know. I certainly know some of the ludicrous.
Why is it a waste of time if you use it as a judging point?
Because I'm familiar enough with it. Hang on, you asked a question, I'm going to answer it. Okay, because I'm familiar enough with it that I'm able to look at the laws and commandments provided within it and realize that they're completely ludicrous. That God, the creator of the entire universe, the architect of the cosmos and the originator of all of life and all of reality, is extremely highly invested in what kind of haircuts people have, and in what kind of food they eat, and in what kind of tassels they have on their curtains or robes. It's ludicrous.
You never read the book of Leviticus, or if you did read it, you read it haphazardly.
I read it enough. I read it enough
Obviously, if you had read
to
it,
laugh at its contents.
If you had read it, goodness gracious. If you had actually read it, you would know the definitions of it.
Right.
But you didn't read it, did you?
Well, I read it enough to spot the mistakes in there about. I read it enough to spot the mistakes in there about wildlife.
Hold on a second. Let me
are you familiar with those? No. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the Are you familiar with the mistakes in the book of Leviticus about wildlife? Because if you are claiming that God created all of life, wouldn't God have a perfect understanding about the life that He created?
Is this what you do? You just divert. And
you're talking about the book of Leviticus. So I'm talking about the.
Hold on a second.
We're talking. No.
Halfway.
Just calm down. Okay. So we're talking about the book that you want to talk about. So we're going to talk about it now. So in the book of Leviticus,
we're going to talk about the book of Leviticus.
Yeah, we are.
Correct.
So while God is giving His dietary codes, and He's separating out the animals that are clean to eat, that can be eaten, from the animals that are unclean to eat and can't be eaten.
That's the book of Genesis, right? By the way.
It's actually not. It's Leviticus 11:6. He's talking specifically about hares and rock badgers. And what does He have to say about them?
I don't know. What
you don't know.
Does he
okay.
have to say about
well,
it?
He says that they chew cud. Right? Can you see that? It says right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The hare, even though it chews the cud, it does not have divided hooves. It's unclean for you. Why would God say something like that?
The reason that He would say something like that is because unclean meat was said to be unclean.
Yeah, unclean meat was said to be unclean. Like do hares chew the cud?
What? Say it again.
Do hares chew the cud?
I don't think that it makes any difference whether the hairs chew the cud or not. It's whether or not like
I'm
it was
asking you.
unclean meat.
I'm asking you. According to God, hairs chew the cud. Did God design hairs?
Let me ask you something.
Did God design hairs?
No, well, let me ask you something.
Did
If
God?
that's okay. Can
It's
I
not
ask you
okay.
something?
No. Did God
It's not
design
okay.
hair?
Okay.
No. This is. I'm
So
asking you
so
now.
you're
I
the
asked you a question.
decider of
I asked you a question,
you're
and
the
you can ask.
decider.
You can ask me one after you answer this one. Did God design hairs?
God designed everything, by the
Okay.
way.
So it would
Yes,
it would
he
follow
designed
that
hairs. He designed
having
everything.
designed hairs, would he know? Would he
Okay,
know
here we
what
go.
the digestive system of hairs works on?
Okay.
Would he know this?
Let me tell you something.
I'm going to let you ask me your question in a minute, but I just want to follow
Yes.
this train of thought
Yes, he
because
would know that.
okay.
Yes, he would.
So then
Yes, he would
why
know
is
that. So
God
you're
telling
trying to lead me.
little naughty porky pies about hairs? Why is God making a mistake? Is God all knowing?
Wow. Okay.
I really want to let you ask your question, right? But we're going to finish this bit.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm not the brightest block on the chain, if that's how you want to say it. I'm not the quickest, gunslinger in
That's
the
fine.
range.
That's okay.
know.
We don't mind about that.
What I'm
Let's
trying to
stick
say to
let's
you-
stick to the topic because I sense you're
What
trying
I'm
to pivot.
trying to say to you is that the Holy Spirit. Hold on
Yeah.
a second.
No.
That the Holy Spirit is talking to me. And
You're going to hold on a second because you're trying to pivot away from the subject we're talking about, and we're not going to do that. So you wanted to talk about the book of Leviticus. We're now doing that, and I've asked you if God designed hairs. You said yes, he did. And my next question is having designed.
Hold on. I didn't want to talk about.
Well, that's what we're talking about now. So, having designed hairs, my next question was.
I didn't want to talk
Okay,
about.
well,
the book of
this is what we're
Leviticus,
talking
first
about
of all.
now. This is what we're talking about now. So, having designed hairs,
Well-
he would know, wouldn't he, that hairs don't chew the cud. So
Apparently,
why
no
would
problem.
he
It's okay.
say they do if they don't? Is he mistaken or is he lying? Sorry?
Neither. Zero.
Well, he's making an untrue statement.
My Lord and Savior Jesus
Hang on,
Christ. Hold
hang
on.
on,
a
hang on.
second.
No. We're not
My
just
Lord
gonna.
and Savior
No.
Jesus
Nobody
Christ
cares.
is
Nobody
not
cares.
a-
Nobody cares about your Lord and Savior. So when somebody says something that's untrue, there's only two possibilities.
That's
One
your
is
interpretation.
that they know it's untrue,
You
which is
wanna
called
interpret it that way, no
a
problem.
lie, and the other is that they don't know it's untrue, which is called a mistake. There are no other options. When someone says something untrue, it's either a lie or a mistake. So in this case, which is it?
Let me say something. I
No.
make mistakes every single day. I
So
make
was-
mistakes
we-
today.
we all
Today I
do.
made lots of mistakes.
We
by the
all
way.
make mis-
Did
we
you
all
make
mis-
any mistakes?
Yeah,
by
we
the way,
all
sir?
we all
Sir,
we all make
did
mistakes.
you make any mistakes?
Does God make mistakes?
Okay.
Does God make mistakes?
No.
Okay, so then he's lying here.
Zero.
So then he's lying.
He does not.
So you have to now account for the fact that he's
Let me
said
say
that.
something about
No,
what you're saying.
no, you're
Let
going to
me
answer
say
this.
something about the blasphemy that you're saying.
No.
You're blasphemous.
Blasphemy is a victimless crime. We're going to get onto that in a moment. But in the meantime, I'm holding your feet to the fire about this because we've identified a verse in this book
Hold my
where
feet to the fire. I don't
where
care.
okay, well that's what we're doing. We've identified
Hold my feet to the fire.
okay.
I don't care. You
I'm
think
trying.
I care about
I'm
holding your feet- my
I'm
feet
trying
to the
to
fire?
hold your feet to the fire, but you're not letting me do it because you're interrupting all the time. So be quiet while I hold your feet to the fire, and then you can have your say. Okay. We have identified a verse in this book that makes a factually untrue statement about hairs. Okay. Now. At this point, I just have to say, Drew Smith has said the caller doesn't like that you're splitting hairs, which is pretty good spur of the moment material. Thank you very much for that, Drew. But having said that, right, The book says something
Somebody on your
false.
team did that clap chat?
The book says something false
Okay,
about hares. Are you able to account for this false statement, or are you not able to?
No, I'm not able to because
Okay, so then we'll just
I
say that the Bible is an unreliable book, then, right?
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. The reason that I'm not able to is because I don't have enough information about it.
Right.
But you don't have enough information about it either.
I do, because hares are not ruminants.
You don't,
ruminants have
though.
You're
taking a verse. Hold on. You're taking a verse and you're
I'm not.
and
I'm taking a verse and reading the words in the verse and looking at them and noticing that they're not true. Okay, ruminants have ruminants have no, you're not. You're not going to do that. So ruminants have multi-chambered stomachs, so they partially digest their food and then they regurgitate it and they eat it again. That's what chewing the cud means, right? Now, if God really did create hares, he would have known that hares are not ruminants, and he wouldn't have described them as being ruminants. So the only options for understanding this are either that it's a lie or it's a mistake. You've said that it's neither. That puts you in the unenviable position of being logically inconsistent in your position.
I said that you're lying.
Well, I'm not lying because I just read you what it says in the book. What am I lying about?
Whoopsie daisies! You're lying about everything that you're saying right now.
Well, let's take stock. So I don't think I'm lying about what it says in the book because I showed you the quote right there. Right? We all looked at it, and there it is. The hare, for even though it chews the cud, it does not have divided hooves. So I'm not lying about that. I'm also not lying about the fact that hares are not ruminants because, funnily enough, hares are not ruminants. That's something that anyone can look up and find out. This is not controversial at all. So nothing I've said is a lie. All I've done is point out a mistake in the book.
Hares being ruminants.
What we are, unfortunately, as uncomfortable as that clearly is.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We're talking about Lord and Savior being our Christ and Lord.
No, that's what you want. That's what you want to talk about. But I don't want to talk about that right now because all of that stuff is completely irrelevant until we can establish why anybody should care what this silly book says. All of that stuff is just fan fiction. I don't care about it.
It's the real. Okay. Well, okay. So fine. You want to talk about hares?
I want to talk about. I want to talk about how ludicrous this book is. I want to talk about how completely ludicrous this book is.
You don't want to talk about. You don't want to talk about Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but you want to talk about.
Do you want to talk about Jesus's lineage?
Why are we talking about hares?
Do you want to talk about Jesus's lineage? I know you like talking about Jesus.
Yeah, I do want to.
Okay, what was the name of Joseph's? What was the name of Joseph's father?
It's a good question.
You should know it. I mean,
why is that important?
Well, because you want to talk about Jesus, and Jesus is supposed to be.
I want to talk.
Is supposed to be the big shot, right? And he's supposed to be the Messiah. The Messiah prophesied that as coming from the line of David, right? So we would have to look at the lineage. So if we look at let's start with looking at Joseph's lineage. Let
me say something real quick.
No. Okay. We're talking about Jesus. We're talking about Jesus. No, we're talking about Jesus now. So if we look in the book of Matthew, right? Let's look at the book of Matthew together because we like reading the Bible, don't we? So when we look at the book of Matthew, it says here quite clearly that Joseph's father was Jacob. Would you agree with that? Are we still there? We've stopped talking about hares now. You'll be very relieved to know.
No, we're still here. We're still here. Calm
Great.
down.
Okay. Wonderful. So if we
the restroom, so
that's as much information as we need. So if we look in the book of Matthew, we can see it very clearly says that Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary. Correct. So what was Joseph's father's name?
Respectfully, we're not talking about Joseph or the fathers of
Well,
anybody. We're talking
respectfully, we
about
are.
Jesus Christ, our Lord and
Well,
Savior.
but before we get on to
No, we're
Jesus,
not.
I'm showing you that the Bible that
No,
you
we're
cling to
not.
is not
No, we're
just
not, because there's nothing. Hold on a second.
is not just unreliable when it comes to wildlife and dietary laws. It's also unreliable when it comes to the lineage of Jesus.
You
So,
have got to be joking me.
so
Like, bro,
what was
we're
Joseph's
talking about
what was
Jesus
Joseph's
Christ.
father?
You
What was
don't want to
Joseph's father
talk
called?
about Jesus Christ. You're
What
deflecting.
was
You want
what
to
was
talk about his
what
ancestors.
what was
You
Joseph's
want to talk
father's
about
name?
like anybody else other than Jesus Christ. I
What
wonder
what
why
was
is that?
what was
That's
Joseph's
curious.
father's
Why
name?
is that? You
Okay,
don't want to talk about
okay,
Jesus Christ,
okay.
Lord.
Calm down and relax.
That's a little bit
Okay,
suspect.
okay.
Just saying.
What was Joseph's father's name? And there's a reason why I'm
It's
asking you this.
suspect, bro.
Do I really
And
have to
everybody
explain?
knows
Okay,
that
I
it's
guess I'm going to have
suspect,
to
bro.
explain it. So, in order for us to know anything about Jesus, we have to read the New Testament. In order for us to be able to evaluate whether the New Testament is a trustworthy source with respect to Jesus, we need to see whether it's consistent. And one of the ways we
How
see
about
if
you
it's
just read it?
consistent
How about
is
you
by
just
reading
read the
it.
Bible?
So let's do that right now. So when we look in book of Matthew, chapter 1, near the beginning, it talks about Joseph's father. I've got it right on the screen here. Can you see this on the screen right now?
You know what? Let me say something, because and let me say something
We're
to
all just
everybody that's
desperately, we're all
listening
just,
to your
no,
Bible.
we're not going to do that. We're all just
No.
desperately trying to have
We
a
are
linear
going to do
conversation.
that.
This is not a preaching platform for you. This is a
I'm not
conversation.
preaching to
Good.
anybody.
You're
I'm not
correct that
preaching to
you're
anybody.
absolutely right that you're not. So we are going to read this because we're going to make a
What I'm
point.
saying, what I'm
No,
saying to
no, you're not saying anything. We're making a point about how reliable the New Testament is as a documentary evidence of Jesus. And I'm going to show you that it's not very reliable at all. So we're going to start here. So in the book of Matthew, it says that Joseph's father
what
is
you're
called
going to do is
Jacob.
take the
Do,
good book
do you
and
agree? Do you agree that Joseph's father is called Jacob? And this just needs to be a yes or a no from you, please. Just a yes or a no.
look. I'm gonna say
Just
a
a yes or
yes.
a yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
if
Okay, that's
that's how
fantastic.
you want to lead me. Okay,
Well,
so this how you're gonna do
you
debates?
you,
You're
you
just
don't.
gonna lead me
You're
to a
entitled to.
path
No, you're
where you're
entitled to
going to
disagree.
trap me
You're
and say
entitled
something? That's
you're entitled to disagree. If you think
goodness.
the book of Matthew is wrong, then say you disagree
I'm
with it.
not
I'm not.
saying that.
Okay, so is the book of Matthew right about this?
Uh yes, I
Yes.
guess.
Okay, great. Okay. So now let's look at the book of Luke, which also speaks about Joseph's lineage. And it says that Joseph was the son of Heli. So in the book of Matthew, we're told that Joseph's father is Jacob. And in the book of Luke, we're
Sorry,
told
my phone was ringing.
that's
Sorry
okay.
about that.
And in the book of Luke, we're told that Joseph's father is Heli. Is the book of
Hang
Luke
on real quick.
correct about
I'm
this?
sorry. 231. Are you driving?
Yes.
Yeah,
You probably, yeah. You don't sound like you're in a good condition to drive, buddy. You might want to pull over somewhere, or chill somewhere.
yeah, and also if you're driving, we can't do this. I'm afraid it's against any kind of common sense rule, or it's not safe to live and drive. So we're have to drop this. You can call back another time. Yeah.
Get off the road, buddy.
Yeah,
You sound a little sauced. Please don't drive.
yeah.
If you can hear this, you pull over, call a friend, do the right thing, buddy.
Yeah, good call, Sean. I didn't even clock that he was driving, but that's absolutely right. Okay,
Well, it
so
sounded like he just got in his car too. So, what is that?
this is the kill switch.
Oh, it's not a TikTok thing.
No,
Okay.
I'm going to introduce
Okay.
you now to the kill switch. The kill switch is a fantastic power that our inner circle members have. I was just demonstrating its glory for you at the end of that call. It felt like an appropriate moment to do it. If we have a guest on who is either unpleasant, or if it's going on too long, or it's too boring, the inner circle members have access to the kill switch. And all they need to do is push a button. And if 2 of them do it, I get the notification, that comes on the screen, we hear the wonderful music, and the caller gets dropped. So that is the power that comes with being in the inner circle. So, of course,
use that wisely.
With great power comes great irresponsibility. But yes, there we are. Beautifully curated music to go with the kill switch. But yes, there we are. So I thought I'd just give it a demo for you because I just love it so much. Okay, well, 231 Go seemed to go. So we're going to move on with Joshua from the TikTok queue as well. And then we have PVQ on the YouTube side and Kayla on the TikTok side as well. So bringing in Joshua right now. And we will see how that goes. Hey, Joshua, how are you?
I'm well.
Excellent.
How are you guys doing?
We are very well indeed. Yeah. I was feeling almost a little bit slightly bad for our last caller because I think I maybe gave him a bit of a hard time, but don't know.
I think you were very polite. I think you were very polite to him, and I think that hopefully we have a better conversation.
Yeah, I mean, we're not the same as some other channels that are all about just like owning people and stuff. We want to just have sensible conversations, but we need to also stay between the sort of guardrails of logic and reason. So that's what we try to do. And I think he unfortunately argued himself into a position where he was making unsupportable claims. But anyway, let's move on and look forward, not back. What's your position on this stuff?
My position on this is I don't think that God is silly unless you are accepting like the modern way or the way of approaching the Bible as a singular inerrant document that has never changed, that people didn't write it, that it didn't have a cultural grounding, that it wasn't, for example, written to us, not the New Testament, not the Old Testament, completely removed from us. And I think there are some things that we can take from it, things we can learn from it about ourselves, about maybe about the world, but I don't know if it's what people propose it is in my fundamental brothers, I should say.
Yeah, okay. So that sounds to me like you're staking out some territory where you're prepared to say maybe the Bible is not a historical account, strictly speaking, and maybe some of it is, maybe, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What I'm taking from what you've said is perhaps there's just parables and metaphors and stories there that may have some wisdom that we can draw from, but we shouldn't take it too seriously in terms of its claims. Would that be a fair characterization of your position or not?
I would say it checks. I would check a lot of those boxes, but sure. I do take it much more seriously than that.
So how do you decide?
I check a lot of those.
Okay, all right. So you're somewhere on the spectrum of literalism, perhaps not quite as far as someone who's an inerrantist that says every word is absolutely true, but not as far to the other side as some people who might just say, well, it's all just metaphor and story. You're somewhere between those 2 points. How do you decide what to take literally and what to take metaphorically?
Well, a lot of it I don't take for myself. I try to take it as though it were written to, for example, like the book of Revelation is written to the 7 churches in Asia Minor. They were going through something at that time, and a lot of Christians who have a futurist view of this book are literally, I think, ushering in the end of the age as they see it through political means because of these beliefs. So it can be kind of terrifying if you're reading it through that lens. But for me, I think that he was warning them, like Jesus was warning them about something apocalyptic, the end of the world, the end of the age, the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, perhaps. Things like that. So I would say, okay, so what did they think it meant? Because if we just start with, oh, you know what it means to me is this, it's like, it doesn't really matter what I think it means. I'm not even a Jewish person in the first century.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's try and look at it from the perspective of people currently now. So do you think that human beings require salvation?
No, I think the salvation, that rescue was from the coming wrath in the first century.
So we don't need it anymore. So I don't need to believe in Jesus. There's no advantage. There's nothing bad is going to happen to me if I don't believe in Jesus and don't accept Jesus. Is that your view?
I don't. It's really hard for me to say it, but I don't personally hold to that idea. I think that our lives can be enriched by having a relationship with God, but I'm more concerned with trying to understand the God and Father of Jesus for myself. And I think the way of being that he advocates is a direct connection, not a priest to bless me, not a system of sacrifices and things like that, but that's all away. And the temple is,
Do you believe
we are the
there's
temple.
do you believe there's a heaven and a hell?
I don't. Well, I believe that. Well, I believe that it depends on what you mean by heaven.
Okay. Maybe could you describe what you believe happens to all people in the afterlife? Like, are some people going to remain deceased and then other people are going to go off and be with Jesus? Or is there sort of what's the whole afterlife situation from your point of view?
From my point of view, this is a matter of opinion. From my point of view, I would say that when a person dies, they return to the source. They return to God, who gave, their breath returns to the one who gave the breath, and their body returns to the ground. And that's what I believe happens after a person dies. I think that maybe we even get some more enlightenment at this point.
I got you. So do all people go to God, or does some people just remain unalived?
I believe all people go to God. Okay,
so including like the most awful people in the world in history, like everyone goes. Basically, I kind of consider if you're with God, we could call that heaven. But if you don't want to call it that, that's fine too. But everyone has the same ultimate fate.
I don't know if there's going to be some sort of moment of like. Where our minds are enlightened to being able to see things more clearly, and because we don't have all the answers. Maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe you don't have all the answers, and all at once we would perhaps have those answers. And
I got you. And it wasn't a loaded question, but I just wanted to, because the normal Christian perspective is. There's different conceptions of hell. Some people it's annihilation. Some people it's literal hellfire. But it's like the good boys go to heaven and the bad boys go to hell. Not to leave out the women, but you get what I'm saying. But from your perspective, you believe everyone goes to God, and that everyone is like pretty much forgiven, fresh start. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, from my perspective, they become one with God.
Okay, I got you.
Maybe even again. I don't know.
It's a very unorthodox view. You want to say something, John?
Yeah, I mean, what I would offer at this point, right, is that the way I look at all of this stuff is there's two levels of objection. I've got like a sort of very visceral, emotional, humanistic kind of objection to the concept of belief-based salvation, right? I think telling people that they deserve to be punished because of what they find convincing is, I mean, the phrase I always use is morally idiotic. It's a moral abomination to do that to people, and that's the core thesis behind my work, behind this channel, behind what we do, is pushing back on that. So it sounds like you're not there. So you're then articulating a different kind of perspective, which doesn't upset me as much. It perhaps offends me aesthetically, in just that I think that talking about gods and relationships with gods and stuff is, well, to my mind, is just a bit silly because it's unwarranted in my view. But
Understood.
But I don't really have a problem with it. Like it upsets me aesthetically to talk about Bigfoot and fairies too for exactly the same reason. But I don't lose sleep over it. So what you're describing is a theology that doesn't offend me in the same way. Like, I don't really mind. If the world was full of people who think like you, I probably wouldn't do this. I wouldn't be motivated to do this because you're not perpetuating hurtful ideas in the same way as somebody who, you know, is telling people and telling kids that people who believe the wrong things are going to be punished and deserve to be. That to me is just totally odious and unacceptable. I'm not hearing that from you. So even though we don't share a worldview in terms of exactly what we believe, I don't really have a philosophical problem with where you're at, other than just like aesthetically.
Because your philosophy is under the banner of allowing people to believe what they do, the conclusion that they've arrived at, as long as they're not trying to control other people. It sounds like is that right?
Yeah, my pushback is against harmful ideas, and so even though I don't necessarily agree with you about, you know, you've got an idea of how reality operates, I have an idea about how reality operates. They can't be squared. They are different. One of us is at least one of us is wrong, right? I'm not sure exactly where the answer lies, but you're not saying anything that's making me think, you know, that your ideas are directly hurting people. So okay, I'm about harmful ideas, and I'm not hearing too many from you right now.
So like for me, I've been doing this more. I've been finding more comfort in things like prayer, and I know that probably is a red flag too. But things like in prayer, what I try to do is I try to understand God in a way where He is helping me. He's helping me, and I'm asking for help, and I want Him to be like a father who guides me, a good father, who doesn't, you know, kick me while I'm down or point the finger down at me, but who's kind of like helping me, assisting me up, helping me to clarify things in my mind. It could be that maybe you have meditation practice. I don't know if you do or not. Some sort of mindfulness with, you know, Sam Harris has some fire out there, you know, and things like that. You know, that's a way of sorting things out within your psyche. And I
don't have a problem with people who want to use their attention in any particular way. I think when they start making claims about how it might impact others, or, you know, withholding medical treatments or anything like that, then we can have problems. But yeah, what you're saying sounds to me like it's quite personal to you, and you're not, you know, dumping it on other people. And I, you know, as I said, even though we have a disagreement about things and about our assumptions about reality, I don't have too much of a problem with where you're coming from.
It's been a while since I've listened to Jordan Peterson, and I don't know if that's a bad word in this room or whatnot, but
it's profane.
It's profane.
No, but
you've probably seen him wrestle a little bit with Sam Harris and things like that.
Yeah,
I'm half joking, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, what are your thoughts on that when we're talking about the psychology and doing what you know you should, and not telling what you know to be, not saying what you know to be false, and things like this, that kind of central Christian paradigm?
Well, I don't think that those ideas are Christian ideas. I think that, you know, the virtues of honesty and the golden rule and you know, those sorts of philosophical concepts had been expressed centuries before they were written down in the Bible. I don't think the Bible gets a monopoly on, you know, on virtue and on ethics. I think those are good principles to live by. You know, I think that morality should be values-based rather than rules-based. In other words, decide what end goal is important to you, and then judge every action based on whether you think it's going to get you nearer to or further away from that end goal. The end goal might be, you know, promoting well-being and avoiding suffering. That's a really pretty good place to start. And then everything else flows from there. I think the Bible gives you rules, and I think rules is a very, you know, deontology, right? Is a very rigid way to define ethics. It doesn't allow for situation ethics. And I think the ethics you get from the Bible is very rigid and very brittle to me. And there are much more sophisticated ways and better and more flexible and more practical ways of deriving ethics than, you know, looking at a book of instructions in that way.
I definitely agree. I agree with part of that. I don't think it fully advocates for just the rule-based thing if the further you get into the book, let's say. But I do think that the message of self-preservation is what really keeps people on the one book, inerrant document, I'll keep my thumbs in my ears and I will yell at the top of my lungs if you say otherwise, because if I leave this God, he will leave me, and I'm not going to allow that to happen, not even for you. So so there is some. It's a little scary. It's a little scary because that's the God. That's the God that's prevalent there. But I appreciate your time, and I just wanted to have a chat and just see how you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Nice talking to you. Take it easy. Thanks. Okay, there we go. We are going to go over to the YouTube side now, and we are going to bring in PVG over there. Here we go. Hey, PVG.
Hey, John. How's it going?
Good. It sounds like it's a fairly bad line where you are, but we'll try and manage with it.
I think that's just the ceiling fan. Let me just turn that off. How about now?
Yeah, let's see how we can work with that. Nice to speak.
Okay.
How you doing?
I'm all right. I just wanted to tell you something. While I was on the queue and on the tiny URL, the portal.
Yeah.
I can't hear the other guests. I can only hear you.
Yeah. So there isn't a direct audio connection at the moment between TikTok guests and the Video Ninja. That's. I'm going to try and figure out a way of using virtual cabling to fix that, but it's so complicated, and I'm a little anxious about breaking what's currently working. So I haven't got under the bonnet between that yet. But thank you for letting me know that. I do know that that's the case right now, which is it's a bit of a limitation, but I will get it sorted eventually.
A suggestion, John. Due to your prior life, I'm sure you know some good sound engineers that might be able to help, right?
Yeah, it's a software thing rather than an audio engineering thing. But I will get there. I'll speak to Justin about it. I have some news about that actually. But yeah, Justin's offered to give me some a technical leg up, so I'll pick his brain because he is able to make that work. So I'll pick his brains and he'll set me straight, I'm sure. But anyway, PVG, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm just tuned into. I'm not sure. I mean, I agree with you on everything, but I'm not sure if I should give you a debate on anything. I was like, the topic is God is silly, isn't it? And I do think God is silly. And I had a huge, experience deconstructing my own religious background. It was not easy because you're always tempted to go back, and like Sean, I was actually binge watching all your videos for the last 2 days. It's really nice. And then I think one of the videos, one of the sessions, I heard Sean say that it broke his heart when he deconstructed and he left his belief. So I don't think for many of us, the theists, they don't understand that it's not a pleasant feeling coming out of it. Like we didn't become happy by stopping to believe. And I think that from a psychological perspective, that actually I did share that paper on the chat, on the Ninja, on the URL, on the box. It's a good narrative review, and you can see the author delineate how ideological asymmetries are there, and it has a lot to do with the cognitive styles of people who hold certain belief systems, whether it's political or whether it's anything else. And one of the things, so there are like three categories, and they are epistemic, existential, and interpersonal motivations. And under epistemic motivations, he points to something called comfort with uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And they found that he was talking about many studies, and they found that people who are quite on the right, leaning towards the right, they're very uncomfortable with uncertainty.
That's
And
interesting.
it's not just the right people who fall on the right wing of the political spectrum, but it's just any form of radicalization of any form of political ideology. And one of the things it's also, there are correlations. There are correlations with radical ideologies and also religiosity. There are other studies that correlate them both. And one of the things we know is that religious people or religiosity is quite well correlated with this discomfort with uncertainty. And this is very good, because when I was looking through one of your videos, because I didn't know you were live, I think there was someone called Miles. He tuned in and he was telling you about. Am I getting his name right?
I can't remember.
Miles, I think.
I can't remember.
Okay.
I've got a terrible memory, unfortunately, for callers, because we speak to so many people, and then eventually I have to kind of flush out my RAM, and then I don't remember quite a lot of the time.
But he sounded like you. It sounded like you already knew him, because he was an atheist as well. But he was mentioning why people, want this religiosity and want to believe in religion or have God and have this form of hope. And he did mention uncertainty. And he did mention that we are, and we know that there's patternisms. We are pattern recognizing machines, and we are hardwired to recognize these patterns for survival. With I think Michael Shermer used this example of, the rustling of the wind and the twig, and then if it's be a predator, and you're aware of that. So it's the same thing, when you're uncertain, it's not feasible for survival. So we get this defensive mechanism somewhere, probably in the neocortex and also somewhere in the amygdala, where your emotions kind of come up or get processed, and then you abruptly you have to come up with the decision. You have to come up with the conclusion very quickly, because we have the luxury in modern times to analyze the data. Back then, we didn't have the time to analyze the data and deduce and experiment. It is just a flight or fright to survive. So they had to make a decision. So that uncertainty is a factor for why people succumb to religiosity. Yes, there are genetic bases of religiosity. Sapolsky talks about this a lot. Robert Sapolsky. Sapolsky was it? Yeah, Sapolsky. But then it's not entirely. It's not like only a percentage of it is genetic, and most of it should be environmental and nurtured. So that's why indoctrination is way more influential when it comes to religiosity. But then I do think God is silly, but I don't think people succumbing to religiosity is silly, because just like how we don't have a choice when we analyze the data and we come out of these belief systems, they don't have a choice to overcome.
I agree that they don't have a choice. I do agree that they don't have a choice. So in my book, I'm arguing for believers to understand that people without belief don't have a choice. We can't just choose to believe. That's the kind of central thing. But actually, the same principle must be applied fairly in the other direction too. And we need to understand that people with belief didn't choose to have that belief either. They have it, and we need to engage with that honestly. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't push back on the beliefs, that we shouldn't argue against them and try to make a case for why the beliefs they hold are irrational and don't make sense and are harmful. And then some percentage of them may start to think differently. And even if they don't, the reason I do this is to legitimize non-belief. So even if I am unsuccessful in converting a single believer away from what they believe, that isn't my mission. My mission isn't to do that. My mission really is to just create an environment where we are legitimizing non-belief as a completely valid position to be in a morally neutral position. It's neither good nor bad. You just believe what you believe. And if you can't believe something, if you're unconvinced of something, then that's just a fact about your own psychology, which isn't really amenable to judgment, and certainly isn't amenable to punishment. And nobody should feel bad about it or guilty or listen to any voices saying that it's something shameful or anything like that. Speaking of shameful things, TikTok has suspended gifting in the live again. And I think it's because, it says the reason is that this live features continuous and monotonous actions without clear objectives of sustaining engagement. In other words, I'm not dancing around the room enough. It's completely ludicrous. What a completely silly platform. Total nonsense.
You know what you got to do then, right, John, to fix that?
To dance around the room more.
Yeah, get up and do a dance for us.
Completely crazy. But anyway, PVG, we're going to move it on, my friend. But thanks for coming in to talk to us. I appreciate it.
No worries. It was nice talking to you, John.
And you.
Sean.
All the best.
You too.
Take care. Thanks. Bye. Okay. We have a couple of friends in the TikTok queue. We're going to bring in Anister, and then we've got Screaming Silence. Always great to speak to Richie. Okay, Anister coming in right now. Hey, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
I just wanted to say that I'm not going to be modding anymore because the times are up for me. And
okay. The time of day?
The time of day, yeah. The night times I can't do anymore because I have to get up early, and the daytime I'm gonna be doing my work. So yeah.
Sure. Well, in that case, I must just say thank you for being an OG mod. I think you were the certainly within the first two people I asked to mod in the chat, and you have been wonderful and done such a great job, and I'm very, very grateful. So obviously you're always welcome, and I'll leave your mod power in place. So if you do happen to come in and you feel like getting your mod on, you can do it. But thank you for everything. Really, you have been wonderful. Always so thoughtful and well judged and fair, and that was why I asked you to do it. So thank you.
I always love doing it, and I love the live still, but yeah, it isn't possible anymore. So I just thought I'd come in and say that, and thank you for everything, because I love being part of this community, and I'll probably still answer to some videos or something when I have time. But
great.
So
yeah.
And if I can be around, I will be around. So
fantastic. Well,
thank you for everything.
We'll save your seat for you on a permanent basis. You're always welcome here. And thank you for being such a huge part of the community. And you were there right from the beginning when things were just building, when they had not yet, snowballed. So I never forget the people who were there from the start. So we appreciate you. Thank you very, very much indeed. Appreciate you, man.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll miss having you around as much. And we have a fixed schedule now. Is that correct, John? Has that been solidified?
Pretty much, yeah. It's pretty much Tuesdays during the day and then Thursdays and Saturdays at night. But I understand the timing is really difficult. These night sessions, if you're not in the US, it's pretty tricky. So I get it.
Yeah, I'm in the Netherlands, so yeah.
Yeah. Totally get it.
I have to get up in the morning.
That's brutal. I think mornings are overrated. They should cancel them all. But yeah, I hear you, man. And thanks again for everything. And keep in touch and see you in the comments.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. All right, buddy.
All right, Anister.
Take care. See you soon. Okay. He is all sorts of awesome. Okay, going to read a few messages and then we'll get Screaming in, and we've got Jane as well, and no one in the YouTube queue at the moment. So if you're watching on YouTube and you want to get involved, you know what to do. You just follow the link. I'm going to put it in the chat. There it is in the chat. Just do that thing. Stick that in your browser and come say hi. We're just going to have a few messages, otherwise they're going to get too backed up. Bethos, again, lovely to see you. Oh, this is going back to our A minor joke. That A minor joke, I'm not going to tell it again. The A minor joke can be made even worse. A flat minor. I'm sorry for this posting. You should be ashamed of yourself. But also, ha 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 as well. So thank you for that.
YouTube brings the dad jokes and the dark jokes. I got to say, those two categories.
The jokes on the YouTube side are on point always. I'm here for this completely, definitely. And Tim is the captain of the joke team. That is official. We need to make a badge for this.
I just read this one.
I lost my faith when I saw my pastor with an altar boy. I thought we had something special.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't laugh, you have to cry, right? So I'm here for it. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that very much. Axehead Gaming says, just wanted to say, you guys make me feel less crazy. I grew up in a very religious part of Florida. I felt crazy because I did the it and I did the it and all and felt nothing. Thanks for showing me I'm just not gullible. Yeah, you're just not gullible.
Yeah.
That is basically what it is. You're not gullible, and you're free-minded enough to not try to contort your mind into psychological positions it's not meant to be in. So good for you. And if there's a degree of people feeling normalized by this stuff, then that's a huge win for me. That's what we're here to do. So I'm really pleased to hear that it helps. Bethos again. Finally, someone else asks who documented Jesus' thoughts when he was alone in the garden. Yeah, I've thought this for a while. I asked this myself for a long time, you and me both. How can this scripture be accepted as a reliable record? It's nonsense. It's so ridiculous that these things would be written down like there was a journalist scurrying along behind Jesus taking notes, and then passing them back to a team to kind of make sure it all got logged correctly. These are just myths. These are just myths. It's bonkers to me that people think that these are anything more than myths, because they're not. Drew, nice to see you, my friend. So if your goal is to attract believers to your cult, isn't there a motivation to make up a resurrection story? Right, so this is going back, I guess, to our conversation perhaps with maybe with JC earlier, talking about like why these kind of stories would happen and what would be the motivation to start this kind of myth making. Absolutely. I mean, what's cooler than a resurrection? Resurrections are cool. People dying and then not dying. That is cool. If I wanted to start a cult, that is definitely the kind of stuff I would put in there for sure. And then we've got just some random dude on YouTube, which is still to this day the best username ever.
Yeah.
Hey John, just a little something to help keep your sanity. Well, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. I massively appreciate all the support to the channel. It allows me to do this full time and not do other things, largely not do other things these days, which is my mission now moving forward, is for this to be the thing. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you. Tim says, hell is being customer service in heaven. Yeah, that wouldn't be good. Can you imagine the entitlement? Like all the Karens are up there. And can you just imagine what it would be like? Like people complaining about this and that and every other thing. And thinking that they deserved everything. Yeah, I think it would be grim. Absolutely grim. Customer service in hell might be quite cool, though. I can imagine that having a slightly different slant on it. That might be fun. Maybe we'll do that. And Tracy, lovely to see you, T. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. Billy Joel. We didn't start the fire. Praise Puff. Well, we do praise Puff. May you be reflected in his scales. Really appreciate that. And then finally, we've got another one from Tim. I recommend Sir Sick. He debunks religious and anti-scientific silliness with humour. I like this. I don't know who that is. And I'm not saying this just because I play D&D with his wife. Okay, I might need to know more about this, Tim. This is not something I know about. And we've got a couple more lining up in the message queue, but I don't want to keep our guests waiting too much longer, so I will pick those ones up shortly. We're going to bring in Screaming right now, and then we've got Jane after that. YouTube queue is still empty right now. So I'm sure that whatever believers there are in the believer sphere are spread liberally around the various lives going on right now. So whoever we're not dealing with, I'm sure our colleagues in the space are probably dealing with adequately. What's up? How you doing, Screaming?
Doing pretty well. Just dealing with the crazy weather here in New England, USA. It woke up to 30-degree weather, and by 5 o'clock it was 70 degrees out. So
Wow.
it's kind of an adjustment.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Is that just like
quite
is
a
that like
swing in one day?
Yeah, is that like a springtime thing that you get these crazy movements like that?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago it went from like 20 to 60, and then it went back down to freezing, and then now it's shooting back up again. Unfortunately, my body does not like it at all, so it knocks me off my feet. My body takes a long time to adjust, so when this happens, I'm just like knocked out. But thanks
Right.
for the warm weather coming, though.
Yeah, it'll be good soon. Another few weeks, and we'll be there.
So I wanted to just quickly bring up something that I've had going on. Sorry, my dog is, you can see he's with me. He's gonna
Oh,
snort and sniffle a lot.
that's okay. We're dog friendly here.
Good, good. So last week on Mezzo's live, he ended up talking to somebody, this guy who was really struggling with his faith, and they had a really long, good discussion. And one part of it, he actually started to cry because he was saying that losing this belief, he feels like he's also losing people that he's lost to passing away, because he had hope
Yeah.
that he would see them again. So his brother had passed away when they were younger, and he's always looked forward to seeing him again in heaven, and that's something that really just keeps his belief alive. And so it was very sad, because he literally was crying as he was talking about this stuff, and was just saying, like, I don't know if I can deal with knowing that he's gone. So I messaged him because just some of the stuff he was saying I really connected to. And we've been talking actually the past couple of days on TikTok, and come to find, like, our stories are eerily similar. Like, we've gone through a lot of the same stuff in the past 5-6 years. And so we've been able to really connect. And, I'm trying to encourage him as much as I can. And it really made me sad, because like I told you before, like, what's the alternative of not having, like, these beliefs that are told to you and forced on you, and this ideology about what life is and everything? Like, how much different could it be? Like, we could maybe have these coping mechanisms already to deal with loss and grief and all these different things, and not make it so confusing and much harder to deal with when we lose these beliefs. So I've invited him to watch this channel. I don't know if he's watching right now or not, but it's been really good to talk to him. He actually told me, he's like, it's blowing my mind that a stranger is making me feel like more acknowledged and loved than my own God has the past couple months.
Yeah.
So that was, really, really encouraging to hear, because I know what that's like. I know, like, what he's going through. But what, for me, maybe Sean, this would be a little more towards you, but for me, like, losing my best friend 2 years ago has been one of the most difficult things, because I did in the past kind of have this hope of seeing him again or whatnot. So that is something that's really difficult. And I did tell this guy, you don't need to lose everything, like you can still maintain a hope that maybe there is possibly, like, we don't know, maybe there is something after this. And if you're going to literally go crazy and not be able to like live because it's all too much and you're losing everything, like you can still hold on to some of this stuff and just digest it slowly over time. Sean, you held this belief before, and then you
Yeah.
didn't. So, what was your outlook
So
on it?
yeah. So I need to preface this by saying I'm not a professional in grief counseling or any sort of mental health counseling whatsoever. I think the issue is so for me. I lost both my mother and my father at separate times, but I was already an atheist when it happened, and so I suspect you just have to go through the grieving process of having lost someone, and when you believe you're going to see them in heaven some days, that's sort of a coping. It's like a Band-Aid for going through the grief process and getting through the grief process, and it can take years anyway. So believing you're going to see them again, I suspect kind of gives you that comfort, like they're in a better place. I'll see you again, mom, or whoever it happens to be. I'll see you again. And then you pray, and then you feel like you're talking to them. And then when that's taken away, I can imagine that's really hard. But I think that's one of the harms it does. And maybe it's not a harm if you just continue believing for your whole life. I don't know the psychological effect of that. I do know, like, for me, I am not all the way to terms with my own mortality. I think life's too short, and I think it sucks that someday we all have to die.
Yeah.
But if I had grown up accepting that, I might be more adjusted. Like John seems like way more adjusted to that than I am, at least from my conversations with him, right? So I think that's one of the things that religion does. And I wish I had some, like, here's some great words of wisdom. Just look at it from this perspective, and then he's going to feel so much better. I don't have that, but, talk to other different people who have deconstructed, will have gone through different experiences, or maybe have gone through that and found something that helped them. But I don't have a magic wand on this one, for how to fix that within them.
Yeah, I'm not looking for like the correct answer.
Yeah.
You don't need to feel bad about that. I just like to get different people's outlooks and opinions, because I just think that having that array of different opinions, like, just helps you kind of formulate your own thoughts and feelings about it. Because
Yeah.
I do, my cousin passed away a couple years ago from pancreatic cancer, and she was quite young, and she really suffered. Like, it was horrible watching her waste away. But her parents, although obviously they was hard and they were sad and they grieved, they're very, very religious. And when she speaks about her daughter, she always has a smile on her face, and she's never sad about it, because she just says, like, I'm so excited to see her again one day. So there is that part of it where, like, I do sometimes look at that and be like, man, like, I do wish I had that, because my end is so hard. Like, I remember sitting with my ex. We were on the porch 6 months after my best friend passed, and sorry, I'm gonna. Oh God.
It's all right. So take your time.
And I just said to her, like, I don't feel him. Like, he's just gone. Like, I don't understand that. Like, how is he just doesn't exist anymore? He's not there. Like, it was so confusing to me that I went into a deep depression for like 6 months, because we were brothers. Like, we weren't brothers by blood, but we were brothers.
Yeah.
And when you lose someone like that, you feel it very, very deeply.
I know.
So that's one of those things where, like, when this guy was talking about this, I was like, man, like, I just really want to just make him feel heard and known. And the other thing that, I said to him, was, you're grieving the loss of people that aren't here anymore. But unfortunately, when you go through this process, you're going to lose more people and you're going to have to grieve those people as well. But the way I was able to kind of get through some of that is I had to look at it as, well, am I really losing friends, or am I losing people in my life because they might like having me around? They weren't really truly friends, because I told him, when you start saying that maybe you don't believe in God and whatever, they're going to tell you that's pride, and that's, you're being arrogant or whatever, all this stuff. And I said, I want to tell you, I don't know you, but I'm proud of you for what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, and you should be proud of yourself, because him and I went through so much stuff where we literally lost everything in our lives and continued going. And I said, I'm so proud of you. And that's when he replied back and said, you're helping me more than anybody, because I think that as Christians, you're not allowed to be proud of yourself, because it's all of God and it's all of the Holy Spirit. And that's another way it's so damaging, because it's how dare you, this be you? It wasn't you. You're a piece of crap.
It's so dehumanizing, and it takes away the most valuable thing we have is the way that we can lift each other up. And it's almost like, well, no, you can't be lifted up by another person. Only Jesus can do that for you. Only, magical ghosts can do that for you. No, these are human beings. The real connections are between human beings. And I'm really over the moon, Richie, that you're in a position now where you can pay some of this stuff forward and be there for someone else. And
100%.
He may well end up being there for someone else too, right? And then you're still, a root of that tree. So I think it's brilliant. I really commend your obvious compassion and empathy. I think that's fantastic. That's what this is about. This is about trying to help people. And I think that we need to grapple honestly with what is lost when people lose faith. It's very easy for us to sit here being smug about being right about this stuff. And we are right about it. It's all bullshit, but we are right about it. But I think at the same time, we also need to acknowledge what people do give up and what people do lose, and engage with that loss from a position of honesty. I'm going to be writing about it in my next book, actually, is very much about this, about deconstruction, about what people lose and what people gain, but speaking honestly about the loss first, and then we get to look at the good stuff afterwards. But so I think it's great that you're doing that, and you're acknowledging him where he is. You're not just saying, don't worry about it, it's nothing. You're meeting him in the place where he is, and it's fantastic that you're doing that. That's going to help your own healing too.
I appreciate that. No, and believe me, it does. And I don't want to keep you too long, but I just want to say one more thing to that. With that book coming, if you ever want to talk a little more deeply about some of that with me, because this is the biggest thing in my life right now, is going through this process, because it has been such a big deal to me. And it's very hard for me to hear, but it's also a little cathartic, hearing some of these Christians when they talk to you and they say some of these things, because I get to see you telling them and explaining to them what the reality and the truth is, because I don't know why they don't. It must be just denial or brainwashing, but it's almost like they make people not human. When they say oh, what are we supposed to be, robots or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's no, but you're the one doing that, because you're just saying, make a choice or else. But at the end of the day, so much pain has been a part of this process. Losing my community, losing half of my family, being treated as an idiot or someone who's prideful or self-righteous, your whole entire worldview changing, grieving over and over again the people you already grieved in the past, and now you have to grieve them in a different way. There's so much. This process is so layered that it's like so cool to hear you talking about this, because this message really needs to get out, because just every single time I talk to a Christian now, still, even in 2026, the lack of compassion and empathy, I had
Absolutely.
my ex brother-in-law a few months ago, when I was talking with him about some of this stuff, because he was trying to get me back to church. One of the things I said to him was like, if this is all true, like, I wasn't asked for my consent to be a part of this. Like, Richie, wasn't given consent. I didn't give consent. And he looks at me, he goes, well, then kill yourself.
Oh,
and I was like,
wow.
what? He's like, you give consent every day that you stay alive. And I was like,
that's horrible.
Dude, like, are you being serious right now? He's like, yeah. He's like, you're giving consent by continuing to live. And I'm like, coming from someone who has struggled with that and actually attempted in the past, like, that is the worst thing you could possibly say to another person, especially when you're trying to win them over. You should be having nothing but compassion for people.
That is unforgivable.
Nothing but compassion.
That's unforgivable.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
And this guy is a pastor.
A pastor.
Unbelievable.
I mean, that guy should not be near the public to screw up in a way like that. And that is an absolutely horrendous. If I could speak to that person, I would tear him 5 new ones, because that is absolutely unacceptable way to speak to someone, an unacceptable thing to say to anyone, let alone somebody who's
dangerous.
Who's faced the challenges you have. Yeah, that's completely unacceptable. Yeah, tell him to call in here.
I want to. Honestly, I really want to.
I would recommend for your friend, or if you need it yourself or what have you, seeing a grief counselor. And then I suspect that with what he's going through, when you come to the realization, like, I don't actually believe any of this crap anymore, and then you realize your lost loved ones are actually lost. It could be a whole new grieving process that you have to go through. You kind of went through grieving light before because you're like, I'll see them again. And now you have to go through the real, like the grown-up version, where it's like, hey, I actually lost somebody.
That's why it's insane when they say that atheists are taking the easy way out. Like, it's the harder way. Like, what are you talking about? It's so much harder.
Oh, yeah. And I hope most Christians aren't like this, because I don't get in these discussions with face-to-face people very often. But TikTok Christians are so just completely lack empathy and so unself-aware and so dismissive. Like, I hear stories like this. I hear what you've gone through, and so many others in this community have gone through, losing their religion. And when they're just like, you guys are just being prideful, you just wanted to rebel, you chose to be an atheist, and they're just so dismissive. It makes me want to, like, completely freaking go off on them and like lose my cool. It makes it hard for me to keep it together.
I made a decision on my end that I needed to realize that at the end of the day, I have to have sympathy towards them, because they're brainwashed. Because when they sit there and they say these things to me, and literally, like, sometimes they yell at me, I stop them and I just say, like, hold on, like, do you really truly believe that I'm going to burn for billions and billions of years unless I'm convinced of what you're saying? And they'll be like, yeah. I said, so there should be nothing out of your mouth except for pure love and empathy, because otherwise, what's the alternative? You're just literally turning me away more and more. But if you really truly believe I'm going to suffer, have empathy. Like, there should be nothing but sadness for me right now, not anger, because I don't believe. There should be no anger.
Oh, and in some cases, it's like, you'll see, and you can almost see them.
There's a glee. There is a glee about it. It's really ugly. It's actually really, really, really
You'll
ugly.
get your someday. Your knee's gonna bow. It's like, you want that for me? What? You want that?
Yeah, because it's the perfect expression of perfect justice. So it's really horrible. But hey, we're not toxic like that. So we can at least feel good that we don't, and we can even try to. It's hard to maintain a forgiving disposition back to people. I definitely don't manage to live up to the highest expression of that. Like I can talk the talk about we need to understand that believers don't have a choice, and they don't have a choice about their beliefs too. And like I can spell those arguments out, and I do spell those arguments out, but I know I don't manage to live up to them all the time, because sometimes someone is just so odious and their manner is so disgusting and their casual indifference to suffering is so appalling. I don't have it in me to just price in the involuntarism of their position too. So I'm flawed as the next one. But
I just try to put myself. I try to flip the script and be like, if I was on their end, would me being angry and reacting or saying things to them that aren't very nice make me convinced of what the point they're trying to get across? And probably not. So it's very, very hard, but thankfully it's been gosh, up to 5 years where I have not lost my cool, because I just try to maintain that knowledge that I have.
You are an absolute inspiration, Richie. Really, you are. I'm so glad that you're part of this community, and I feel so privileged to have played a small part in your story. And we really, really value you. Yeah, we really value you.
You know what?
So.
It can't be easy for you to kind of share so much of yourself and make yourself vulnerable in front of so many people, but guaranteed you're helping others and you're giving them permission to do the same. Mm-hmm. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you guys go. Thank you for listening, and everybody else. Love y'all.
Take care, man. Keep well. Keep well. Right. Okay. So by way of a small palate cleanse, I want to share with you. We just need to deal with the name on the screen. There we go. So we have our very first user submission for the Believer Bingo from our very fine friend Flibberty Giblets, who submitted That's the Old Testament. It was a little while ago. I think it might have been, I'm trying to remember which conversation it was in. It might have been with our confused hair friend, or it might have been another one. I didn't notice the notification coming at the time, otherwise I would have jumped on it there and then. But I did see it and wanted to share with you all. That's how the Believer Bingo interactive works. So brilliant. It seems to be working. I've spent a while trying to get this tech together and lots of testing and stuff, and I'm pleased to see that it kind of works. So there you are. That's brilliant. And congratulations on being the first. That's a wonderful thing. Okay.
Nice.
We are going to get Jane in just a minute. And then I do have a couple of questions that have been submitted via the members Q&A form, again, from wonderful friends and members that we will be addressing. But let's just speak to Jane, and then we've got Sir Jedrick as well. We've got wonderful people calling tonight. YouTube queue is still empty. If you're on the YouTube side, you know what to do. tinyurl.com/JC guest. Come and say hi. Jane, hello.
Hey, John. Hey, Sean. How's it going?
Good, Hasty. How you doing?
Very well.
Doing great. Well, a little sad after Screaming's thing. It was really poignant stuff there. But anyway, I have a couple positives, I think. First of all, I wanted to say, John, you were saying earlier that your goal was to legitimize non-belief. And I just wanted to very quickly say that I don't know if you remember the first time I called in, but I called in and I think you didn't think I was a friendly, and I think I came in kind of aggressive. And I was a little kind of shaken by this question, because this was really the last stone unturned for me as an atheist. I had a kind of a rock in my stomach, thinking that maybe the call really was to, for lack of a better term, to brainwash yourself, like to narrow the information that you took in, and to really like focus only on the Bible and only on your relationship with God and that sort of thing. And I honestly, I've been 17 very depressed and very hard years of being an atheist in the Bible Belt and in a very religious family and all that stuff. And I was really about to like go back in the closet. Like I was not to sound like a horrible person, but I was kind of teasing my family with it a little bit. I was like, I'm kind of considering maybe I'm wrong, because I was just so worn out. I didn't have any sort of deconstruction community or anything like that. I just didn't. My partner is an atheist, and we, of course, bonded over that, but there's just not very many around. And certainly none that I'm related to and that sort of thing, and or very few. And this was the last thing. Like I didn't know neuroscience said what it said about non-belief, about being able to choose. And I really couldn't ever get over that last thing of thinking maybe I am just really fucking rotten, And so this was like, sorry, I don't want to cry, but this was like the last thing for me. And it's been really important. It's been a really kind of rough couple of months because it's been like, I don't know, this was like the last tension for me. And anyway, this was supposed to be positive, but I wanted to say that you guys are doing it because you did legitimize it for me. And
thank you.
I was ready. I really was like ready to give up and just like go back in the closet and just pretend. And that thought just made me want to vomit. Like but I was so like,
well,
I was just so unsure, anyway.
That means everything to hear that. It really does. Like, and good on you for not doing that and for staying true to yourself and staying authentic. And, we've had a few conversations away from the lives and even collaborated on a fantastic video you did. And I think you have every reason to feel hugely, hugely proud of staying the course and staying authentic and true to yourself. And I couldn't be happier for you.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And then the other thing I had was really quick. Everybody was talking about struggling with people's deaths, and being an atheist. And, like when somebody dies, it is really tough. My father died when I was 6. So I had to kind of deal with this, like a screaming set of like kind of going back and thinking, oh, he had to die all over again when I became an atheist and that sort of thing. I turned to a scarcity argument in a lot of these times when things are like a rarity or a scarcity argument with myself, or a negotiation that I make with myself in really sad or really hard times, a lot of times. Because when you can't turn to like God and this stuff that you turned to before, it can be really hard. And like for me, I didn't really have anybody to talk to anybody about this, because if I tried to talk to somebody, they would just say, well, you're sad because you don't have God. So I really had to turn to myself a lot. And it was numbers for me that got it. Like I think not only was it so incredibly rare that this person, that my dad lived and that he made me, but that I have some of the few memories of him that are left. Just the numbers are astronomically small. Like of all the thoughts that have ever happened in humanity, I have some of the just the tiniest, the one grain of sand in the entire, thing of the memories about him. Like I have just some of the most precious things, and to shadow those or to make those bad by being sad about it when he's not suffering, he's not suffering. He's gone, he's fine. There's nothing, he was here and now he's not. And I will be not here. I'll not be here at some point. And so will a billion other people and 10 billion other people. And it's all just going to keep going on.
As it always has.
So I turned to that a lot, of just thinking like, if you're having a rough time, just even if you have very little to hold on to in life, think about like how few people in all of human history get to take a hot shower or something like that. Like I turn to these scarcity arguments often, and it helps a lot.
That's brilliant.
Anyway, and I won't take up too much more of you guys' time, but
well, you need to know that you're getting lots of love on the YouTube side as well, by the way, just so you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry for getting emotional.
No, it's fine. This is a place for people to be authentic, and this is it. We don't shy away from emotions here. This is good stuff. So thank you, Jane, and you're, as I said to Richie before, you're a big part of this community now. you're stuck with us. So thanks for being so honest, and really appreciate you as always.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
guys. Talk
Take
to you
it
later.
easy. Yeah.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sam.
Bye. Okay. We have Got Sir Jedrick in the queue on the TikTok side, but we're just going to head over to the YouTube, and we're going to get David in just a moment. I'm just going to read a couple of messages, and then we'll bring you in, David. Thank you for your patience, friend. Okay, we have Axehead again. Nice to see you again. Thank you for this. Sorry for my crap typing. I was walking. Love you guys. Thanks for giving me a place to be. You always have a place here. I'm always appreciative of your input and your involvement. I'm always happy to see your name. So thank you very much. This place is yours. You guys are the place. That's how this works. Tim again. If Jesus is the way, and to be Christian is to be in Christ, doesn't that mean they are in the way? It does.
Nice.
It does mean that. It does. I need to know.
Tim comes up with these on his own.
I think Tim
just comes up with them.
It's just like a joke factory. I've just got this vision of Tim just spending all day just creating humorous one-liners and jokes, and I'm completely here for that. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, I love that. And then the Sir Sick that you mentioned earlier, there's a link here. Well, thanks very, very much indeed for that. I am going to save these and check it out. Thank you very, very much. And then we have a message from a new friend that I haven't seen before. Forgive me if I haven't forgotten, but I think this might be possibly a new friend around here. Upshot, not whole. Hey John, former US Marine EOD tech here. I enlisted as a believer, and after deployments picking up blown up humans, I lost all faith. God's not real. Well, I can completely relate to why those kind of experiences would lead you to that. And I'm sure Sean you can as well. Yeah, and yeah, respect to you for being a Marine. I know what's involved with that as well. Yeah, and if you don't know, Sean is active army right now at this moment. So, and then we have Oceanus. Nice to see you, buddy. Another link. I will have to find out what that is. I don't know what that is. It says Dark Matter 2525. That rings a bell.
Oh, you haven't heard of Dark? You'll love Dark Matter. Check
I
them
think,
out.
Yeah, I think that's a channel I might have seen before, but I can't quite remember it right now. But thank you.
Clever. You'll love their material.
Sounds good. I saw someone mentioning Non-Stamp Collector in the chat earlier. I used to love his stuff. Australian guy, did these brilliant animations. Really, really good. Okay. A couple more messages, but we'll come back to them later because I don't want to leave our guests waiting too long. So we will bring David in right now. Hey, David.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Sure.
I saw the prompt and I was kind of listening and was sitting on for a few people. And I don't even know if it'd be doing it justice to even talk about the chat, but I think while listening, the thing that got to me and I think should really get to any decent person is that like the last two callers, if not more before I hopped on, just been through a lot of crap. And the thing that bothers me is that like the way how they've been treated is just obviously not in the scriptures, but it just sucks because it's so prevalent. It's a lot of society and it's very heartbreaking. So yeah, it really sucks. And that doesn't even do it justice to say, but it's very traumatic.
Well, thank you for your compassion. Do I infer correctly from what you said when you said it's not in the scriptures that perhaps you're coming from the perspective of saying that's just like church hurt and bad church people, but actually the message in the scriptures is different? Would I be right in understanding that that's your perspective?
Yeah. Not entirely. Okay. And I would even say it's far to say that like sometimes when you blanket things truly as just church hurt, it's even probably a little bit more complicated than that. But definitely a part of it. But yeah.
So for me, my response to that would be that I have a problem with what's actually in the scriptures. I think it's possible for somebody to be kind and compassionate and a decent human being, say as a pastor or a clergy person, and hold to the scriptures and then still end up doing a lot of harm, because I think it's the actual ideas themselves that are harmful. I don't think it's a problem in execution. I think it's a problem in content. So as an example, it's one I always come back to, but John 3:18, which says those who believe in him are not condemned, but those who do not believe are condemned already because they have not believed in the name of the only Son of God. On the face of it, that seems like quite a sort of innocuous thing to say, but that's actually a really awful thing to say. You're saying that if you find yourself unpersuaded of something, if you don't believe something, and belief isn't a choice, it's not something you can you can't choose to believe something. If you don't find it persuasive, you don't find it persuasive, right? If it hasn't convinced you, you can't just decide to find it convincing. To say that you're condemned because of that, it's hard to see how that makes any kind of logic, like moral sense at all. Any kind of the moral logic in there, to me, is completely weird. And that idea alone is such a harmful idea. So even if someone in a church is nice and they're not abusive and they're not being nasty to people, anyone who's purveying that idea, anyone who's spreading that idea and telling people that that's how things are, is, in my view, doing something morally indefensible. What's your perspective on that?
I appreciate that perspective. I think that makes sense. I think, as I think about that, I still think even in that verse per se, it's how you walk someone down through that. Because I think even hearing all the callers, it's like I do feel that people were like genuinely trying, genuinely searching, or feeling genuinely stuck. Like, dang, I kind of grew up in this, kind of had no choice, and my whole ecosystem is kind of into this. But if it is true, it's true, right? Like I can't force what is true or what's not true.
But like, if it's true, is it good?
That people may perish.
That people will be condemned for not believing things.
Well, I think in the context, what the Bible is trying to communicate, that if you look at like Hebrews 1, in the past, God spoke to people through prophets, but like in these last days, like God comes in the flesh. He's like, hey, here I am. And so it's trying to give the evidence there. And what I was thinking, what you were saying, is that part of it is that like, well, that doesn't seem morally fair, but I'm saying like, if it is true, I think the problem for a strong point, maybe not in all the points, is that how people communicate and walk with people through this. Like, I don't think, because it seems like what I've been hearing, and again, this has kind of changed my initial kind of communication coming through, because, and again, the initial thing, is God silly. And at this point, I feel like it's arbitrary with the context of hearing everybody else talk. But it seems like what the responses are is like, hey, hell exists, go to hell, demon guy. And it's like the constant kind of berating of this. But it's like, that's not how Scripture is telling you to do. And I don't have a problem if it's true, because it's also giving you the way of being free and having this eternal life. But
it also it carries with it a threat, right? It's not just an offer. This stuff is always characterized like it's an offer. Like, have you heard the good news? It's like a mafia boss coming to you and saying, have you heard the good news? If you pay your protection money, no one's going to burn your restaurant down. Like, it's wonderful. To me, this is exactly what this is. It's extremely coercive. It's extremely manipulative. And it still doesn't get round the fact that if somebody is genuinely unconvinced, as I am, for example, does it make moral sense for me to be punished in any way just because I wasn't persuaded of something? it's lunacy to even contemplate that a requirement to, to avoid the punishment, a requirement to get the pardon which is on offer, right? This is a conditional pardon. So people say, oh, you don't send yourself to hell. Everyone is bound for hell. You just don't take the way out that Jesus offers you. Well, that's up to you. But that's just an inversion. That's just a language trick. So this is a conditional pardon, and the conditions you need to satisfy in order to obtain this pardon is to find yourself persuaded of something you don't find persuasive. That's not psychologically possible. No one can do that. So it's an unfair setup from the start, because it presumes the whole theology is based on the assumption that if you want to believe something, you can just choose to believe it. And this is a demonstrably false claim.
Yeah, part of it I couldn't hear you. I don't know if it's just on my end, but so sorry if I can't connect all of it.
That's okay.
But I think what I was understanding you saying is that, like, it really sucks if I can't be persuaded of this thing, and it's kind of a bad setup from the beginning. Is that correct?
Yeah, because even if you say it's not about propositional assent, it's about a relationship, and it's about trusting in Christ and all of that stuff, all of those relational things are still downstream of you thinking there's someone there to trust. So if you don't think that, in my case, I don't think any of this exists, right? To me, it's just mythology, right? So, and I'm not capable of thinking anything different because that's what I think, right? It's not. I'm not saying I refuse to think anything different. I'm open to hearing evidence. I'm open to if God wants to come and show me that He exists. I'm open and ready. I always have been crickets so far, and so because of that, all I can do is be persuaded of the things I'm persuaded of. It doesn't make any sense for anyone to be punished for that. And I've never heard an argument for why that should make sense.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because I feel like I imagine that, like, some of you guys have either grown up in some religious context or read scriptures, right? But it's hard for me to say because I'm not exactly sure what was explained. And like it's not something that I think can truly connect. Well, not necessarily. It's hard to connect something fully in 5 minutes because we're kind of talking of the same kind of pieces, but there may be a understanding that may not exactly hit. And you're like, and I could see it could be interpreted as, well, I've heard this already, I don't like this. I think the Bible message is a bit layered of a good message. I'll explain to you this way. I'm a Christian, right? I've been a Christian since 2011. I didn't really believe in a God. I did a lot of deep digging within the scriptures, outside of the scriptures, and eventually came to focusing on Jesus, right? Isn't really a new message. And God's got rid of my depression, some of the sins that I would struggle with, and a lot of peace and a clear conscience. And you could argue that many things can do that, and many other religions could do that.
Yeah, and I would also argue that the positive benefits of belief don't say anything as to the truth of those beliefs, right? So you could believe things which are complete bullshit and derive a benefit from believing them.
Right. And I feel like you can unravel almost any angle to some extent, because I'm looking at, parts of history, or, you go through all the kind of apologetic blah, blah, blahs, and even can discount if your next door neighbor's like, hey, I saw a miracle, like, oh, it may be some mental health trip or something, right? Yeah. But I think I was genuinely trying to see if it existed. If it didn't, I was like, don't bother me about your grape juice and your wafers. I found it to be true. And I think that the claim of this kind of good and bad is a strong statement, but I think you also have to kind of see what the whole underlying message is, and then put it to the test and see. But
the message is horrible. I mean, I have looked at this quite a lot for many years. Like, I've had my head in this for longer than you've been a Christian by some significant margin, right? And I'm not claiming to know more. I'm just saying that this has been an area of interest for me for years and years. And I don't find the message uplifting. I don't find the idea that God created an environment where salvation was something that was necessary. He didn't have to do that. That was his choice. He decided to do that. I mean, we can start with right at the beginning. The whole premise of all of this we know is not even true. So there was no Adam and Eve. We know that about our history. We understand. We do know enough. Whilst science may not give us all the answers to everything, it gives us a lot of the answers to a lot of things. And so we know that the entire story of Adam and Eve as first humans in a garden and all of that is not true. But even if it were true, that there were two first humans, the sort of moral logic of that story is so hideous to me that they transgressed the rules before they knew that disobeying God was even bad. They disobeyed God, so they were like naive children. They were naked. They didn't know right from wrong. God said, don't eat that fruit. They ate the fruit. They didn't even know it was wrong, but God got so angry with them that he cursed billions of other people. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't reflect well at all. And then he invented this kind of crazy workaround to be excused from the punishment he had imposed on everybody else, which was to accept that an innocent person should take the punishment as a substitutionary atonement for everyone else. That doesn't make any moral sense to me either. Like, if I'm born with a sinful nature, and the default position is that I deserve to be punished because I have a sinful nature, if that's true, and if perfect justice requires that I be punished, then I will take my punishment. I'll stand up and I'll say, okay, well, I don't understand why I deserve this punishment, but if I do, then the right thing is for me to take the punishment. I do not give consent for an innocent person to be hurt in my stead. That's not something I would ever agree to. It's certainly not something I would think was a good thing. I couldn't live with myself. I wouldn't live with myself, and it's not something I would ever consent to. So to me, all of this stuff is both unconvincing in that I don't think it's true, and if it were to be true, I would be morally appalled by all of it, and I would say, count me out of this. Count me out of this scheme. Count me out of this idea of it being righteous to hurt innocent people in order for other people to not get their just deserts. I don't like any of it. Doesn't make sense.
That makes sense. Or I hear you. The only two things. The first one's very minor. In the garden, like, God did tell Adam and Eve, like, the consequence of doing it. Like, that part.
He lied. He lied. He said you'll die today. He said you'll die this day. They didn't die. The serpent came along and said you're not going to die. The only one who told the truth was the serpent.
No. They literally died.
They didn't die. They got banished from the garden and they went off to have kids.
Yeah, but they didn't live forever. They died.
Right. He didn't say you're going to die one day. He said you're going to die this day. They didn't die that day.
I don't know if that part. I'm just going to look it up. I mean, it's because that small nuance makes a big difference.
Yeah, but does it make sense that to punish someone else for a different person's crimes? So Adam and Eve ate the fruit, and by the way, if God is all powerful, he could have made a version of Adam and Eve who have free will that wouldn't have eaten from the fruit. But after they ate from the fruit, we could set that aside. How does it make sense to then make it so all future generations will inherit a sinful nature, and to the point to where nobody can not sin? Like, everybody, like, Christian doctrine is literally every single person is a sinner. And God decided that would be as a punishment for what Adam and Eve did. But because he decided that a consequence will be we can't not sin, now we have to be saved by him. But in order to do that, we have to believe he exists, which isn't a choice. So if you're born and raised in Saudi Arabia and you're born into a Muslim culture, you're not going to believe Jesus is Lord and Savior. You'll believe he was just a prophet. If you're born in India, you're likely to be Hindu and Buddhist in Thailand, etc. But God can let everyone know, hey, I exist. I'm the correct God. Here's my rules. But he doesn't do that. So, like, the whole thing is a setup. Don't I mean, how is it not?
Hey, Sean. Sorry, it threw me off because I was had to figure out who was talking. No offense to you.
Sorry about that. I should have, like,
no,
on the
it's
YouTube
fine.
side, it gets confusing.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's cool. That's all me.
Do you need me to repeat any of it or any part you didn't catch?
If you could, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So it starts off. So I'll start with this. This is going to sound ridiculous, but we can both agree neither Adam nor Eve likely sang the song "I'm a Little Teacup," which means God is powerful enough to make them with free will that there's something they would not choose to do. He could have made a version of them that would not choose to eat the apple, but still have free will. But he decided, since he's all-knowing and all-powerful, he decided to make a world in which, this is his choice, Adam and Eve will eat of the fruit. And as a consequence of them doing it, instead of punishing just them, he punished future generations like women and having pain in childbirth, etc. But the big thing is all future generations get a sinful nature, which means every single person is a sinner. We cannot not sin entirely. You know, some may sin more than others, but every single person is going to sin. And God decided that. So now that he decided that, he's very angry with us for being sinners. So in order to forgive us, he needs to sacrifice himself to himself, because Jesus is God, in a very gruesome way on a cross. And then on top of that, we all have to, now that we're a couple thousand years removed from that, we all have to be convinced that Jesus is Lord and Savior in order to have a relationship with him. But belief isn't a choice. Like, if you're born in various different countries, you're probably going to be convinced of the wrong religion, when God could just let us know, everybody on the planet, if he's all powerful, hey, I exist, here's my rules, here's the correct religion, now you have your free will to follow me. But he doesn't do that. But for those of us who are unable to believe he exists, it's not a choice. It's a one-way ticket to Helltown for us. It just, none of it makes any sense.
Okay, I hear you. Thanks for repeating that. There are two things that I was thinking. I think the Adam and Eve part, you can't put a limit on free will, and I don't say that as like a cop-out, but it's like I have children. I can set boundaries for them, but I can't stop them, unless I intervene and pick them up, right? Like I can't stop them. I can't be like, don't run out in the street or you'll get hit by a car. And he's like, well, I wish you just didn't make me, Dad, to be a type of person that can't run out in the street. Like that part is kind of tricky. But I understand your point of like, it seems like a screwed up scenario of like, dang, you made me basically to be this Jeffrey Dahmer in your eyes, and I can't help it. That's one of the points I was thinking.
He made it so he can't not sin, but also he was able to, like, is God powerful enough to make Adam and Eve in such a way that they have, because he's all knowing and all powerful, so he knows all future events.